Hello everyone, welcome back to the third official episode of Short Game Long Talk. My name is Eric.
I'm Jess.
And today we are talking about Giant Sparrow's game, What Remains of Edith Finch. And this is published by Annapurna, which you're going to hear that name a lot over the course of this podcast because Annapurna as a publisher they typically make shorter games that are like really out there, because I believe Annapurna was a movie studio first, or they made films basically, and so they've taken that concept into games and kind of do more story-based games. But yeah, so it's Christmas. Today we're recording this on Christmas Eve. You guys will probably be hearing this on the 26th, so pretty close. Maybe it might be the 27th because I might be editing it on the 26th, but still. It's the holidays, and so I picked a game about family. Because What Remains of Edith Finch is, I'm going to pull up a quick description of it. But if you don't know what this podcast is, it is about us playing shorter games that you can beat in 1 to, 4 sittings probably is like the limit. And we just basically think it's, the world is busy. People are busy. I have a full-time job. Jess is a full-time student and will be for the next
5 years.
5 years. So it's important to be able to take part in a hobby that you enjoy. And as somebody who's been playing video games most of their life, both of us, it's important to continue to play games. And when time gets slim, it's important to be like, oh yeah, I can still play this game because it's 2 hours long, 5 hours long, 10 hours long. Those are games that you can knock out in like a week or a day or one sitting, like this game. I think it took us 2.5 hours. It was just a movie, basically.
Yeah, practically.
And we took a break in between. Like, so we could have knocked this out in probably 2 hours. This was a very short, very quick game. There's achievements, but there's not like secrets really. There's some things you can miss. And honestly, I would go in completely blind. And really because there's a point I'll talk about in the spoiler section that we didn't do, that we discovered afterwards, that I think since we didn't do it, it actually made the story better. So I'll talk about that later. But the description of Edith Finch on the official PlayStation store description, so this is straight from Giant Sparrow, is What Remains of Edith Finch is a collection of strange tales about a family in Washington State. As Edith, you'll explore the colossal Finch house, searching for stories as she explores her family history and tries to figure out why she's the last one in her family left alive. Each story you find lets you experience the life of a new family member on the day of their death, with stories ranging from the distant past to the present day. I'm going to stop there because that's basically the gist of it. This game is a walking simulator, which, again, you'll hear about a lot on this podcast, because basically you just walk around, interact with things, enjoy a story. There's some gameplay aspects, but you're mostly just moving the left and right stick. Yeah. And that's it. Honestly, makes it for a great story, though. Yeah.
I would say, though, if you get dizzy from, 3D walking, like my dad and me, it's better if you just watch. I watched Eric play, and it was just I had to close my eyes for a little bit because I was like, I'm getting nauseous.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it definitely, it did have, I could definitely see that, because there are points in where you're controlling things where they're the camera, you have inverted controls, and that can be a little off. And then sometimes you control the camera with the left stick, sometimes you control it with the right stick, so it can be a little wonky, but it's supposed to be. But like I said, the game in general, it's just you're experiencing stories. How would you describe the house? The house is the main point.
It's wild looking. I like the design of it, though. Mm-hmm. And when you walk in, there's a bunch of books, everywhere.
Yeah, that's the other thing. When to kind of when you're walking, the way the story is told while you're just as Edith walking through the house or the backyard or whatever, text will pop up, and it'll pull your attention. Basically it turns the camera automatically. So if you're walking kind of off center and the text is to your center, it'll pull your attention and it'll read, and it can appear on anything, right? It can appear on a mirror, in the sky, on a tree, on a fence, that when you walk through the fence, the letters
words
all fall. Like, it's very clever. So that's while she's describing like how while Jess describes like the actual house, when the story is like, once you hit a certain point, you'll like cross a point in the house and like new text will pop up, and if you go this way, this text will pop up, and if you go this way, and that's how you can kind of miss things, which we missed. Like, I kind of accidentally sped ran the game early on, just like went through all the points where I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go this way. So, but you're talking about the house and all the books.
Yeah, all the books. The one thing I really, really wish is that family kept those books looking so cool, because they had like an archway bookshelf, and it looked so cool, but it was all like strewn about.
Yeah, like books facing backwards, like the spines weren't facing out. Some of them were up and down, some of them were sideways. Like, there was no cohesion on that at all.
But when you look at how big of a family it was, I don't think, and with how much.
Yeah.
The whole gist of their family is that they're riddled with misfortune.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone's dead. Like, this takes place in 2017. You play Edith, who is 17 years old. The game itself, like, literally the only information they give you at the beginning is the game opens up with just very similar to Inside, except like there's not even a button press. Like, it just says what remains of Edith Finch, fog rolls away, and then you're on a boat, and it's first person, and then nothing's going on, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I start moving the joystick, and it's like, okay, we're just in the game. And the only thing I could do, like, at the start was, because I just wanted to make sure that the game was downloaded and it was running well before we started playing. And I was like, what the heck? So I hit the pause button, and it brings up the family tree. Like, and the family tree has everybody's name and their death.
Name, birth date, death date.
And
it's all blank. There's no, like,
besides Edith.
Only Edith has a drawing on it.
Yeah. And so basically, like, the gist is, every time you discover a new person's death and how they died, Edith will draw their picture near the family tree. And me and Jess, I think, talked, like, if you're probably playing by yourself, you can do all this stuff, like, you're not thinking out loud, you're not pausing the game as much, but like, we paused the game, like, every time somebody's name was brought up, it'd be like, Walter, like, who's that? And pause it, and like,
what brother is that?
Who are they related to? When did they die? How old were they? And we're like, okay, they were like 10 years old, 11 years old when they died, they're 13 years old, they're like that. And just like that, cool. That's the pause menu. Like, the pause menu gives you so much information before anything else happened. Like, we were just looking at it, and we're like before I even started moving, I like paused the game. We just like looked at the family tree for probably like 10 minutes, like being like, okay,
who's connected to what?
Who died the earliest? Who died the? Who's?
Oh my god!
Yeah, like who lived the longest? It was crazy, and it was just a cool way of like giving all this information, so easily. Like, just, you're gonna hear these names 1,000 times, and you can reference back, like, oh, who was that? Who was that? And how are they related? Because there's a lot of names thrown out.
There's a lot of names, and I'm so glad we had that family tree, because I cannot keep track of that many names.
Exactly. But go on, keep describing the house. Like, what does it look like?
Okay, so there's the main house, and it's like, I think it's like 5 or 6 bedrooms. They have a library. They have like this big backyard. But then, as the family grew, they never reused bedrooms after people died. So as the family grew, they just added onto the house.
Yeah.
But they didn't add sideways, they added up.
Mm-hmm.
So you look up to the house, up at the house, and it's just like another support beam, and then another room on the support beam above the house, and it just keeps going up and up until like there's tiny like little lookout room that lookout, but it's
like, it feels like a crow's nest almost.
Yeah. And it's supported by like one beam, and then like all of the other not buildings, but like rooms underneath it. It's like, it looks old, rickety, and like it would collapse. Yeah, like at any second.
If you're curious, what the, like, if you want like zero spoilers, because I don't I don't recommend this. Like, I can't recommend this enough. Don't like spoil yourself on anything. But if you want just an idea of like what the house looks like without even looking at the house, just Google What Remains of Edith Finch and then click on the cover art, because the cover art is a silhouette of the house. And like, because it's just a silhouette of the house, and it looks like a crazy spiraling, like, just, it's all black, so you can't tell anything. But if you want, like, I just typed in What Remains of Edith Finch on Google, and the third image is a picture of the house from a distance, and it shows, like, normal looking house, and then to the right of it, it just, like, is, like, 4 more stories up, and it's crazy. And
it's not complete stories, it's just 4 bedrooms up.
One of them's a boat.
Yeah.
One of them is just a boat. Like, it's a literal boat as the floor. And that's
like,
it.
the way you get... we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. It's wild. This is definitely going to be a shorter front section, and then the break, and then we're going to do spoilers and theories, because we actually have theories we can talk about on this one. We can actually talk about the story. And then there's actual spoilers, because, like, it's not just, like, puzzles and like... with Inside, there was no, like, direct story. This is a story. This is a shut and closed story, and then there's stuff left up for interpretation. That's basically it.
Shut and closed like a book.
Yeah, like a diary. But yeah, I'm trying to find a good image of the family tree so we can kind of go through each. I
gotta remember who we saw first.
Yes, the first person we saw was Molly.
Yeah,
that one we know for sure. And, like, basically the way it is to enter into a quote-unquote level, is you go either in their room or in an area that's dedicated to the person, because this is all, the house is Edie. It's like great-grandma Edie is the matriarch of the Finch family. And this isn't really spoilers. We can talk about Odin, which was
the great-great-grandpa.
Yeah, it's Edie's father, who they're from Norway. The family's from Norway, and they sail, like, they were a quote-unquote cursed family. And Odin took his family and his house on a boat to America and went to Washington, to Orca Island, which is an actual real place.
Oh.
Yeah, it's real. Which goes into some theories later. Like, it's a real place, so some of the stuff that's talked about makes no sense because it can't exist. And this takes place in 2017. They moved there when Edie was, like, an adult, because she was about to have her kid. She was about to have her first kid.
She was born in 1917.
Molly?
No.
Oh,
Edie.
So, yeah, they came in, like, 43 or something like that? Or
Molly was 37.
So 37, yeah. So it was close to the 40s that they came. And what happens is, and you don't realize this later, but, like, Odin, like, the ship wrecked and the house sunk.
And Odin because he built that house back in Norway.
Yeah.
He was too prideful to let it go by itself, so he sunk with the house.
Yes, and you think, like, oh man, that's crazy, and then it cuts, because the way, this is a good way of describing, like, how the levels work, is basically you find, for example, Odin's his quote unquote, like, shrine, which these are all shrines, they're all dedications to the people that have died. They have, like, a little dolly, like, not a doll, but like a dolly, like, piece of fabric with their name on it, and it says, like, their birth year, death year, and then a picture of them painted on a
piece of wood,
yeah, from a tree trunk. And Odin's is just a viewfinder, which, for people that don't know what a viewfinder is, basically it's a pair of goggles that you put on and press a little flip thing, and it flips through images and tells a story. Never
seen one in real life.
I know, I was gonna say, I forgot to ask you yesterday. I was like, do you even know what this is? Because I used to use those all the time.
I mean, technically I've used one, but it was, like, modernized. It looked like a digital camera.
Gotcha. So, no. But basically, like, with Molly's, which we'll talk about a little bit, you play as Molly. But with Odin's, they just kind of do, it's like a literal, like, a PowerPoint, like, 6 slides. saying that he died. And what you think is it shows that Edie and Sven, Edie's husband, survive, and then Sven rebuilds the house on land where they like came up on shore. And what you don't realize until later when you get into the backyard of the house is that
the house
Odin sunk like maybe 300 feet from the shore. Like, it wasn't that far.
When it's low tide, they explained this in the story. When it's low tide, you can walk to the house that sunk.
And so I'm like, wow.
He really just...
super unlucky. Like, so close. Like, you don't realize that. You think, like, oh, wow, he sunk in, like, the middle of the ocean on the way here. No, he was, like, right there. Like, he made it.
He could see land.
Yeah. So, that was definitely, like, pretty interesting to me. Okay, let me see. Finally, I think I have a good image.
I have one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been trying to find the first one was like from Tumblr, and it was like not cooperating with me.
I just searched up what remains of Edith Finch family tree.
Yeah. So yeah, the first one that we just described as Odin, but to give an idea, it really doesn't have too much to do with the story. It's not really hidden, but the first death that you do encounter, and I think it's the first death in the entire family on this tree besides Odin, is Molly, who was born in 1937. So Odin died, and then Molly was born, or Molly was born before, or whatever. But you go into Molly's room, which that another kind of point. It's like, why can't you just go to all the rooms right away? The mom, Edith's mom, the character you're playing as, her mom, Dawn, is like very antagonistic to Edie for her own reasons. We're not saying she's a bad person, but it's like she's kind of the reason that Edith doesn't know any of these stories. Like, Dawn has protected Edith from all of these stories, and basically when I think it was when Milton disappeared, she sealed up. That's what she says. Yeah. Milton is Edith's middle brother. Middle brother. Edith is the youngest of three. It's Edith, then Milton's the middle, and Lewis is the oldest. When Milton disappears, Dawn seals up all of the rooms in the house, which she uses like some kind of like what is it? What did you say it was? Because it looks like corpse wax from Elden Ring, which was really funny. But
I thought it looked like expanding foam.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's definitely expanding foam. But to me, it looked like corpse wax from Elden Ring. But I spent like 300 hours in that game, so that's probably why. But Edie drilled peepholes in all of the doors, which this is where I'm saying this is the only bit of advice I will give anybody about this game. You can look in the peepholes. You can walk up to the doors and look in the peepholes. I think it's better not to. Because it's so much cooler when you use the secret entrance to get into the room for the first time and be like, what? Like, you know nothing about the room.
Yeah.
Because like some
of the
peepholes,
you can see the majority of the room.
Yeah, some of them like Barbara's is really long, so you can't see the back at all. So you can't really. But like some of them, it's like, there is extra stories, and like Edith will basically just say what the gist is about each room. And
Molly was always this bright, bubbly girl.
And it's like it's kind of cool for you to just go into the room and put that together yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's better. So I say don't do the peepholes. I think we accidentally didn't even know about it until after, because I was looking up the list of achievements, and it said, oh yeah, look at all the peepholes. I was like, I didn't even think to look at the peepholes. But I think it's better not to, in my opinion. It's a lot cooler to just kind of take in the story yourself. But basically, the way it works is this house has a bunch of hidden doors, passageways
that Sven made for like the kids.
Yes, and that was what Edith was given by her mom. Her mom was a key, which if you know master locks, when you see the key, you know it's just a basic master lock key, and it's literally a master lock key to every little secret in this game. And so you go through, like, there's literally a passageway from Walter's room to a little hole in the wall, basically, where you can hang out, and then it goes straight through Molly's wardrobe, basically. And it makes sense, all the kids hanging out, having fun together. It does make sense. But you get into Molly's room, and I'm not gonna say anything about Molly's room because there's some cool things in there. But I will talk a little bit about Molly's, like how the play experience. When you walk up to Molly's book or a notepad, and she wrote a note. And when you start reading the note,
it's such a sad note.
Yeah,
too.
It is really sad.
Especially for how old she was.
She was 10, I think.
I thought she was younger.
I thought she was 10.
Let me check.
Yeah. 37 to 47.
Yeah.
So she was 10 years old. So we're going to reference this map quite a bit, the family tree quite a bit. But basically, you start reading it, and like the first paragraph is like, quote unquote paragraph. It's like 2 sentences. And when it reads that, the screen goes black, and you just see those words, and then all of a sudden you're playing as Molly. And that's the gist of like the really, like, I think every single death besides Odin's, you
see the 2 words, and then you get transported into whatever, or not the 2 words, the 2 sentences, and then you get transported into whatever world they were in.
Besides, the only deaths we don't witness are Odin's, really, because we see it, but it's more of a news report. Sven, because he's not a blood relative. And Sanjay, we literally don't know how he died, and like we have a theory, but no one says anything exactly. It's just like, oh yeah, when Dad died. That's all they say. And then what else?
Technically didn't see Barbara's like actual death.
Yeah.
I have a theory about that one though.
Cool, great. There's a lot of theories, so I'm curious to hear what yours is. And then the other one is Kay, who divorces the family and doesn't die. To kind of lean into the curse a little bit. But yeah, so that's the gist of the gameplay. We've been talking about the game for about 20 minutes now. Probably a little less. I think we weren't like fully talking about the game, so maybe like 15 minutes. But I highly recommend this game. I don't know. It's from 2017 is when the game came out. And it's on sale a lot. It's worth it. It's a really fun experience, and like I could see in the future, like if I had just a group of friends over, just playing this game. Like instead of watching a movie, like play this game. Like it'll be interactive. It'll be fun. You can kind of talk about it, and I could kind of notice some more things because I feel like I would notice so much more on a replay of this game. So for me, I think it's worth it to just, if you're interested in this game right now, listen to our break where we talk a little bit about some games that we're interested in right now and what's coming up, and some news about the podcast, and then go play it because you could knock it out in less, like
if you're like tunnel visioned, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But if you're like us and you want to like theorize about things, look at the family tree, go like try to explore whatever you can.
Yeah.
Then it'll take you like 2 hours.
2 hours. 2 hours, 3 hours tops. Like 3 hours at the absolute maximum, especially like I think it says the completionist route is like 3.5 hours if you wanted to do it like that. But is there any other like closing things that you want to talk about that are non-spoilery beforehand?
No.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other like because if there's any other context, I'm like looking at the family tree. If there's any other context that we feel like we'll need, it'll just come up in the spoiler section, because I'm looking at everything else and like, I don't want to talk about anybody's death. Besides, like, I didn't even want to talk about Molly's. And then Odin's is the only one we talked about how he died.
Also, did you notice that the right behind the family tree is like sketches of the house?
Oh yeah, a little bit, which is interesting. So I wonder if she drew the house first and then erased it, because those look like faint like eraser lines, which is interesting. So anyway. There's a lot of little details like that in this game that I'll talk about more, because I did some research after playing the game, and there's a lot of stuff that we missed that we didn't even notice, because like Jess said, there's a ton of books in this entire like house, and a lot of them are like hints and stuff to like some theories. So yeah. But yeah, so that's What Remains of Edith Finch, the non-spoiler version. Great game.
Amazing game.
Yeah, I loved it. It is. I can't believe I've never played it before. So I highly recommend it. Go play it for yourself. It's on basically everything. I think the only place it's not is on mobile. Because
it'd be trippy playing that on mobile.
It would, yeah. I feel it could probably run okay, but I feel like it might be a little too small unless you're playing it on like an iPad or something. Because there's a lot of little details that like you'll lose if you play it on a smaller screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. We'll take a little break right here and see you all in the intermission, basically. I still don't have a title for what it is. Intermission feels good. I like intermission. But yeah, we'll see you in the intermission. All right, so we are back in the intermission working title. Jess has some stuff to bring up, which I'm excited to hear about, because we hung out yesterday prior to playing the game, and I was like, "Oh, have you been playing any games?" And I was like, "No, I can't talk to you about that. Like, it's it's literally the whole point of the podcast. We have to not talk about that so we could save it for the podcast." So
yeah, you asked me about. So my boyfriend and I started literally like 2 days ago. He asked me if I had ever played this game called Brawl Stars, and I was like, "No." And so he was like, "Oh, if you want, you should download it, and then we can play." And so, obviously, I did.
Is it free?
Yeah.
Nice.
Free on mobile.
Nice.
And
Let's see what else it's on while you're talking.
I don't know. I think it's only on mobile because it's made by Supercell, the same people who made Clash of Clans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably.
But
probably true.
Yeah, it's a really easy game. It's literally.
Yep, it's on Android, iOS, and iPad OS, which I didn't know was a different thing. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really easy game. 2 joysticks. You tap one of the joysticks to shoot if you don't want to aim. You have an ultimate depending on what character you use.
Oh, so it's like a shooter? I thought for some reason I thought it was more like a Smash Brothers clone.
It's kind of. Hold on. I don't know how to explain it because it's like.
Yeah, I've heard of this game, but I've never seen anything about it or heard anybody talk about it. But
I'm just gonna. Sorry for the people listening.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm.
Maybe if I show you, you can explain it.
Maybe, yeah.
So yeah, you have your character. It kind of looks like Fall Guys when you first enter.
Yeah, very neon, very.
And you can choose your different brawlers.
Okay, they actually each have different abilities and stuff. Okay.
My favorite is Nita. She her ultimate is a bear.
Nice.
And
like
you can
a stuffed bear.
No.
Or an actual.
An actual bear,
Sick.
like buff bear. She's
Nice.
one of the tank characters. Okay. And then I'll just do showdown, I guess.
So there's classes.
It's like ranks.
Ranks. Okay.
And then you just wait for people to join, and then once
oh, okay. So it's 10 players.
10 players for a showdown.
Okay.
And then you literally just.
Oh, and it's like a kind of top down, almost top down, but it's like isometric. Okay, got it. It's for old people. It's like what is that game called? So it's a twin stick shooter, basically.
Yeah.
But it's Smash TV. That's what it looks like to me. And so what you kind of like you get like upgrades and or things like that in the game.
This one, you break boxes to get power.
Okay, so you can get power-ups and stuff.
Not power-ups. It just gives you more.
She's playing this upside down.
Yeah.
And killing somebody, which is funny.
Defeated.
Okay. So, yeah, it's a top-down, like semi-isometric twin stick shooter, is how that is.
Yeah.
That would be the genre.
The way you get your ult is you keep fighting. You keep hitting people until you have enough power.
Okay. And then how do you win? Like, so you
last man standing.
Okay, so for showdowns, it's last.
For showdown, it's last man standing. There's one called gem grab that my boyfriend and I play, and we play all of the different variations, but it's the one that we play the most.
Okay.
And it's literally there's gems in the middle. You have to collect at least 10, and then the countdown starts. You have 15 seconds to hold on to all of your gems.
Oh, okay.
And
so
you're
it's
playing.
like
It's a 3v3.
It's like King of the Hill kind of thing, where it's like you need to hold an item instead of an area, and if you get killed, you drop them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. And is it like, so you said 15 seconds you have to hold on to it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the only way to win, or is it like cumulative?
No, that's the only way to win.
Okay. So you have to hold on to it for 15 seconds consistent, like constantly.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
There's also a different one. I forgot what it's called. I don't like it. It's practically just soccer.
Yeah, that sounds chaotic.
Yeah, because you have to fight people, also have the ball, and get it to the other goal. And when you get hit, you drop the ball.
Okay.
And so with having different characters who have long range shoot like guns, it's hard to just take the ball and run.
Yeah, so if you get hit at all, you
drop it.
Yeah, that seems weird. Huh. But you've been enjoying it. You've been playing it for like 3 days, right?
I've played it for 3 days, but it's very fun.
Cool. That's nice. And there's no like pay to win. It's just like the microtransactions are like cosmetics and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. That is the proper way to do microtransactions. Also, like, don't overcharge people.
And even then, so the way to get like the skins and stuff, like all the cosmetics things that people usually pay for, it's with gems.
Okay.
And the gems, it like, you know how Fall Guys has the like
the crowns,
and you can get gems with your
Oh, you're good.
You get gems with your crown.
Okay.
Or for this, it's trophies.
Yeah. So there's 2 kinds of currency. There's the actual like translation into money, and then there's like the stuff you earn in game.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's typical. That makes sense. How long has this game been out? Do you know?
No clue.
Yeah, because I feel like it's like that. I think it's under a year old, if I'm not mistaken. Might be wrong.
They're in season 15.
That means nothing to me.
I don't know what it meant, but
yeah, that means nothing to me.
He was talking about initial release date 2017.
Oh wow, so
June 15th.
Been another 2017 game. Cool.
What Remains of Edith Finch was April 24th, 2017.
Yeah. And I think the game I've been playing might be around. No, I think it came out in 2020. Originally, this game came out in like 2015, I think.
What game?
I know. I teased Jess yesterday about the game I've been playing, and I've mentioned it before. The original version came out in 2016, and then the new version that I've been playing came out in 2020. What I have been playing, I'm going to adjust here because I'm going to talk about this. Okay. Jess is really going to like this game. But what I told her is it is the antithesis of this podcast because it is, on average, 90 hours to 105 hours long.
What?
I have been playing Persona 5 Royale. Persona 5 came out in 2016. Persona is the 5th game of the Persona series, obviously, but it's really the 3rd game of this style of Persona game. There was Persona 3 that came out on the PS2. Came out. Yeah, on the PS2, I think. And then I think Persona 4 also came out on the PS2. Then the Redux of it, which is Persona 4 Golden, came out on the PSP. And then they always come out with a second version of the game, typically with like quality of life improvements and new story stuff. Just upgrade the game a little bit. So I bought Persona, the Persona 5, the original one for like $5 on like a crazy sale, and then like a year later, Persona 5 Royale came out. I played the first 15 hours of Persona 5, loved it. Then just kind of fell off of it because life. The first 15 hours, to just kind of go into how long this game is, the first 15 hours is just basically the tutorial on how the game works. Yeah, 15 hours. It is not a complicated game, but there is a lot of like aspects of it. So it's a turn-based RPG at the basics, so it's like Pokemon. You have type advantages, weaknesses, very Pokemon-like. I won't go into too much about what the Persona like series is. It's basically a spinoff of another game that is another successful game called Shin Megami Tensei.
Oh, okay.
That's been a long-running series as well, literally going back to the Nintendo, like original Nintendo.
Oh, damn.
And they had a spinoff, and that's basically, I won't get into it too much, but very similar. They're all like, to break it down to us, because we talk about Pokemon a lot, it's basically like Pokemon. You know, you have a persona, which is your quote-unquote Pokemon that you can use, and you can quote-unquote catch persona and use them, but you have party members as well who have their own personas that can't be changed out. You play as a character that can change out your persona and catch other personas and fuse personas and make them more powerful and teach them different techniques and all that kind of stuff to just be more powerful. The other aspect, that part, everyone can learn that in like an hour. That part's easy. All the different like mechanics of this game that are complicated is it is also a life sim on top of everything, because you are a high school student who is like, you go on dates, you study for exams, you work part-time jobs, you work on yourself, you go to counseling, you go to the doctor, you do all these things, but every single thing translates into benefits into
your persona,
into the combat of the game.
God.
Because the way it works is when you're high school student, you're going to the doctor, you're going to the batting cages, you're going to you're learning how to make coffee, you're doing all these things that benefit you. When you go to battle, it is battling. It's in the metaverse, which is very funny now because metaverse was first in Persona before it became
an actual thing.
But that's where you go to fight. They're called shadows, and that's where you go to fight them, and that you raise and lower your stats in the real world, and they transfer into the metaverse with your personas and stuff. The way this game works, the main overarching premise is that you hang out with your friends, you make new friends, you make enemies into friends, typical anime stuff, because it's a Japanese game. It's made by, I believe it's made by Sega. And you have this really long, the reason it's so long is because you literally act out every single day of a calendar year. But you get to do, like, basically what that means is you do 2 things a day, because you go to school, and then you can pick, like, certain things are available after school and certain things are available in the evening. And then on top of that, the main premise is the first palace is each story beat is a palace, and the first palace is about this really shitty volleyball coach at your high school who's like misogynistic, sexist, creepy, perv,
gross,
super gross. And I would love to bring this game to the show, but it's just way too long. I can't. But I think you would really like it because it is about changing people's hearts. Literally, like, you go into the palace, you infiltrate the palace, you steal their treasure. Of the palace is made by a very in the metaverse. They explain it in the thing, but it's basically like the palace is where the evil person that like you're trying to take down, like their quote unquote, like their soul is there. And so you go there and you fight their soul, and it manifests as this huge monster. And when you fight them, you convince them to change their ways. Their soul goes back into the real world, and they confess all their crimes.
Oh.
Yeah. So, like, this dude completely confesses all of the terrible, terrible things he's done, and then you move on. So right now, I'm not even, like, I've done that. That's the tutorial, is that guy. It takes forever. It took me, like, 15 hours again, and I've played the game. But basically, like, now I'm just in between. We haven't found a new palace yet, new person to take down. So I'm just living my life. I'm like hanging out with the characters. I'm exploring Tokyo. Like, this takes place in Tokyo.
You're just being a teenager.
Yeah. And it's really chill. Like, it's really, really chill and really fun. And I'm like, it has this like addictive thing of like, just one more day. Like, what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, you know, like Animal Crossing, when you wake up and you're like, oh,
what's on sale today?
But you can do that every day. Like, in this game, you don't have to wait till tomorrow. You can just go to sleep, next day, new thing. Like, and you can just improve and improve and improve, and it's really cool. So that's what I've been playing. And on top of that, it's like this beautiful balance of like while you're dungeon crawling and fighting shadows, you're like, man, I can't wait to get back to the life sim thing. And when you're doing the life sim thing, you're like, man, I can't wait to get back to it. So it's this constant, like, just constantly excited. And I'm like, oh man, this game is like, I'm remembering why I liked it so much. And I was like, man, I wish I never would have stopped. But now I get to play it with all the life improvements, quality of life improvements and stuff. And it's very fun. And it's on the Switch.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. It's on the Switch. It's on Xbox Game Pass too. I don't know if you play it on your PC, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's on PC Game Pass. Might be, but it's on the Switch. I would recommend it on the Switch, honestly. I've heard it runs really well. It's a game from 2020, but all it is they didn't upgrade the graphics or anything, so it's a game from 2017 or 2016, which is before the Switch. So I would recommend it. You should probably get it. It's a good game to like work on slowly. You know, just like, oh, I got an hour. Let's do a couple days, or I'll infiltrate the palace and get a little further. Because what you are is a thief, so you're like supposed to go into the palace and find a path to the treasure, and then you leave a calling card, and then you go all the way and steal the treasure, and that's the point. But yeah, it's a really fun game. And then on top of that, I'm still playing Marvel Snap. I don't know if I talked about that, but it's a fun game on mobile. But yeah, I think that was like another 20 minutes. I feel like I just talked about Persona 5 for forever, but I highly recommend that game if you have the time for it. Or if you don't have the time for it, just kind of chip away at it over time. If like it goes on sale a lot on PlayStation, it's on Game Pass, like I said, and then I think it's on Steam now too. But yeah, there's also Persona 4 is on Steam. That's coming to the Switch, and then Persona 3 is also coming to the Switch. They're like releasing them in
reverse order.
Yeah, because Persona 5 has like the most quality of life changes. Persona 4 Golden is pretty good. With the quality of life, and then Persona 3 is like, okay, if you played 5 and 4, you probably are going to like 3. But if you didn't like those two, don't play 3, because it's from like 2005.
Oh my god, it's my age.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, let me look up when Persona 3 came out.
Let's see how much older or younger it is.
2006.
Ah, yeah. 1 year younger than me.
That is wild. And then they came out with Persona 3 Fez, an extended version. That came out a year later. Japan, if you didn't know, loves doing that shit. They love re-releasing games with like a new title, and now it's like a little bit like there's a little extra, there's a little more. The perfect example of this is like one of my favorite running jokes from the podcast Into the Aether, which highly recommend, very inspirational to me on this podcast. If you like this podcast, go check them out, they're great. Is Dragon Quest 11. They came out with Dragon Quest 11, and then I think like 2 years later it came out on the Switch, and it was called, and it was basically the Ultimate Edition of it. Whereas like now, you know, with them like US based games, they typically are called like, oh yeah, Skyrim Ultimate Edition, right? Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim Ultimate Edition, Game of the Year Edition, whatever, and that's it. Dragon Quest 11 is Dragon Quest 11 Echoes of an Elusive Age, deluxe edition for the Nintendo Switch. Is like the entire title or something like that. It is absurd why it's so long. Let me see exactly what it is. Dragon Quest 11. Let me see. The title is just so funny. Here we go. Oh, that's right. That's what I forgot. So it is Dragon Quest XI S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch is the entire title. That's all on the box art.
Oh my god.
Like, it's so just like...
That is...
It's so long.
Oh my god, I used to play this on my DS.
Yeah, you should play it. It's on the Switch, and it's a very good game. You can play the demo, too. The demo is free, and your saves transfer over.
Why do they kind of look like Dragon Ball Z?
Because it's Toriyama.
Ah.
The original Dragon Quest game was made by Akira Toriyama and the guy, I forget his name, but Akira Toriyama did the art, so they are it's literally his art. So that's why Akira Toriyama can draw like 4 faces, so that's why. Amazing. I love Akira Toriyama. I have his art on my leg, so like no shade.
No slander.
No shade, but he can only draw like 4 faces. But yeah. Yeah, there's another one. There's one of his faces on my wall. There's more like behind me. There's some right there on that. I got some statues.
On the shelf right behind me.
Yeah. But yeah, is there any other stuff you want to talk about? I'm gonna just talk about the new premise for the podcast going forward.
Oh, you could get into it.
Okay. The thing I was thinking about was I want to try to get more episodes out to you guys more regularly, because we're doing about one a month right now, which is pretty good, considering we're beating an entire game while having full-time schedules. But I want to do more. So what I'm going to do is when we have a longer game, that's probably going to need 2 sittings or 3 sittings to beat. We're going to do podcasts called Between the Games, because we're between this game and the next game. The episodes will be called Between the Games. They're going to have a premise, whether it's like, I think the first idea I have is to talk about the games that came out the year we were born, which is going to be real sad, because we're going to talk about games from 1993 and 2005, which are going to be drastically different. But it'll be fun. So those episodes will have a premise. They're not just going to be an extended break episode like we're talking about, just kind of BS like we are right now. They're going to have a structure. They could be 30 minutes. They could be an hour. They won't be super long, though. But it's just to get more content out to you guys and kind of like continue the listener base growing. And it allows us to, we'll meet up, we'll play the game, we'll record a in between the games episode, get an episode out to you guys, then we'll meet again, play the game, finish the game, then record the new episode. That's the idea. If we play a game that's like 25 hours long, we might have a lot of in between the games come out each month, which is fine, as long as I'm getting episodes out to you guys. But that allows us to get episodes out to you guys, so you guys don't forget about us, and start working on the games. And we might give updates on how close we are to the games and things like that, and just kind of we can do topics based off of what you guys want. I can put a poll in Spotify to kind of, if you're listening on Spotify, it allows me to put a poll on what games you'd want, so I can put it there. You guys can reply and give us some questions. You can reach to us on Twitter, which is Short Long Pod on Twitter, or we don't have an email or anything else. So that's really the only 2 ways to reach us.
I mean, we could work on an email.
We could work on an email, but let's wait until there's demand. I don't want to have like a 7th email. I have so many email accounts. But yeah, that's my idea I have going forward, and I'm pretty excited about it just because it gives us a way to kind of explore more topics of games and like gaming news, or a Nintendo Direct comes out and I want to talk about it. I can talk about it on here and not feel like it's pulling away from the actual podcast. So yeah, that is
our intermission.
Yeah, that's our intermission. And now we're going to go into a spoiler section, which we're at about 45 minutes right now.
So this is going to be like an hour, 30 minutes.
Yeah, probably. Maybe more. So we'll see. Because I'm very curious. I want to hear what Jess's theories are. So we'll see you guys in a second. All right, we are back, and this is your last warning for spoilers for What Remains of Edith Finch. We're going to go over every death, then we're going to go into each theory that we feel is necessary to talk about, and maybe talk about what we actually believe. But in general, this is your last warning for spoilers, because yeah, this is going to be basically the whole game. Like we said earlier, we talked about the house. The house is very series of unfortunate events-esque, weird passageways, hidden creepy places, and a lot of shrines to dead people.
Yeah, a lot of shrines to dead people.
And the first one we talked about, Odin. We basically told you how he died. He died in the water. His ship crashed with the house.
300 feet away.
Yeah.
So close to making it.
And the next one we encounter... Well, the first one we encounter is Molly in the game. But Odin's was the least spoilery. It doesn't really matter. He died in like 1937. He's not important to the story for the most part.
I hear... Damn.
Huh?
You got that like right on the date or the year.
Yeah. Well, you said it earlier.
I did?
Yeah. You said that when Molly was born, 1937, and Odin was he died the same year. So, yeah,
I'm
just remembering things. It's all good. But yeah, the first like person we play as is Molly.
and hers is wild.
Hers is really weird. And there's
She
a thing that we didn't notice as well that I'll talk about when we like get to that point in her play, like playing through. But yeah, we basically like wake up in her bed. Do you want to talk about it, or do you?
I
Want
mean,
yeah.
hers was probably my favorite
Really?
story.
Okay.
I don't know why. It's
Yeah.
just
It was definitely like one of the longer ones. It definitely sets you up to think that each one is going to be this long.
Yeah.
And some of them are real short.
some of them are just he died.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, that's it. But Molly's is long.
Yeah, I think the reason why I like hers so much is because of like the imagination that she used. And like, you know, as a theater kid,
Yeah.
I kind of have that type of imagination.
I feel you.
But so you wake up as Molly. Well, not wake up, but you know.
Yeah, you're Molly.
You're Molly. And she's talking about, well, her letter, her goodbye letter is so sad.
Yeah.
Because she's like, I'll be gone soon.
Yeah.
And as it, like, going into it, you know that she's a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So you're like, why is this 10-year-old writing like this?
Well, that's the saddest thing is like I said earlier, you have access to the family tree like from the beginning. Like literally it's the one thing you have access to in the beginning. And putting together that like Molly died when she was 10. Gregory
died when he was 1
years old. Some people died when they're like, 16. Like, yeah, it's like, oh my God, how are they going to like, they died. One died when he was 11. Like, you're like, what is happening? Like, why are these?
And like one of them died on her birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was, which is never addressed.
Yeah.
By the way, no one is like, oh yeah, she was born on Halloween and died on Halloween. Like, no one talks about that, which is weird. And all of the theories, no one's like, oh, isn't it kind of weird that she died on her birthday? Like, why was she not celebrating her birthday in the story? Like, it's really weird. But,
anyway, that is for later.
Yeah, going to Molly.
So she's talking about how, like, she's like, I'll be gone soon, but here's the story of how.
Yeah.
So she, Edie, her mom, had sent, Molly did something, and
we don't know what she did.
But Edie sent Molly to her room without supper.
Yeah.
And Molly was...
And locked her in there.
Locked her in from the outside. And...
Which is something you can miss. If you don't go to the door, you don't get that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That the door is locked.
But, like, she literally goes up to the door and is like, Mom, can I come out now? And she's like, it's late. Go to bed.
Yeah.
So she's hungry. A 10-year-old is, like, starving. So as a child, you go eat whatever you think is edible.
Yeah.
So she goes eat gerbil food.
Which was a carrot, I found out later, which I was less grossed out by.
But it was, like, brown colored.
But less.
And she said it was dry.
Yeah, less grossed out though. Now that I know it's a carrot.
Okay.
But it's just an old carrot.
Oh, okay. Still gross.
Super gross, but it's actual food. But the other things is like not
she
as
goes eats that old carrot. Then goes to the bathroom, or I don't know if it's the exact order.
Well, so you can look at the fish, but she doesn't.
You look at the fish, and she's like, I thought of eating him.
Yeah.
But
was his name Edward, right?
I don't remember.
Like yeah.
There was too many.
There was a lot of pets, man.
The pet cemetery
huge,
is so much bigger than the family cemetery, which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
But then you go to the bathroom and she eats toothpaste, like completely squeezes the bottle into her mouth. She's still not satisfied, so she goes to the window and eats these cranberries, or
they're holly berries.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Holly berries.
I thought at first they were mistletoe, which is poisonous.
Oh.
But yeah, holly is poisonous, but you have to eat like 20 of them. She ate three. Yeah.
But then she sees a bird in the window, goes to get it, turns into a cat.
Yeah, she like jumps out the window. Like what you think is gonna happen is like, oh, this is how she dies. She's gonna fall out the window.
She can fall out the window.
And then, but there's a chain that keeps the window shut, and then all of a sudden you like,
you slip under the chain as a cat.
Yeah, and this whole time Molly is narrating. She's like, and then I was a cat, and you're like, what?
And then you chase this bird all the way up. You catch the bird, and you
fall.
You fall, and you turn into an owl.
Yes. And now you're flying.
And now you're flying through the air. And she's like, I hear the mice, and I hear
rabbits.
And you look for the mice and you can't find the mice, and then she goes, rabbits.
Yeah.
And then you go fly towards the rabbits.
Yeah, and you eat them.
You eat them.
And you like eat them. Like it shows them like
you
swallow
see them
whole.
like dying.
Yeah, and you eat them like swallowed whole.
Oh.
And then she even says like the next one.
I didn't even chew it.
Yeah, she started
choking, and then she started choking and turned into a shark.
Which was like the most like I was like, hold on. Because like I thought, oh, okay, you turned into a shark. That's cool. I'm gonna be in the water all of a sudden. Nope.
You were still in the woods where you were an owl.
Straight up like the end of Inside. You have to like make this shark roll down a hill. Except instead of ending at the end where you're just a blob at the edge of a river, you actually fall into the ocean. And then that's where you, like I totally got you like dizzy because that was the controls all of a sudden were inverted.
And
I was like, hold on.
You had to chase some seals. You chase some seals. You catch the seals. You eat them, and then you turn into a sea monster.
Yes.
And with this,
it's
all you
just
see of yourself is a tentacle.
Yeah.
But she said that she wasn't able to see herself, but that she was huge but moves quietly.
Yes.
And
she could hear humans everywhere.
She could hear humans and smell humans.
Yeah.
And so you go and you start eating people.
Yes.
There's a achievement there too.
Yes, if you let the guy finish singing. Yeah. And what I was going to say is after that, the last person you eat is the captain, and it's literally Sven. It's literally her dad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like it's her dad the model is exactly Sven. That's what I saw online, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. I didn't even clock that because we didn't know him yet. Yeah, because Molly is the first one that you see, and then you get a little more ideas about what Sven looks like in the next room that you go into.
Yep.
So yeah, then you do that, and then you're squelching the whole way.
Ugh. I hated it. I hated every second of it.
Yeah,
like
so
you know
funny.
in Stranger Things where they hear all the tentacles and it's like.
Yeah, in the subtitles, squelching. Yeah,
what squelches?
So good. Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, then you eat all the people on the boat.
You eat all the people on the boat, and then she starts talking about how I wasn't like finished yet. I smelled something even more delicious across the land. Yeah. And then you're in Molly's room as the
well, you go up a pipe.
Oh, yeah.
And you come up through her toilet. Yeah.
And because I made a joke that the monster is gonna eat feces.
Yeah. And you just go right up through the toilet.
Go right up through the toilet pipe, and you're in Molly's room, and that's like you go under her bed. Yeah. And that's how that story ends. Yeah, and she's like the last word she says on the note was I'll be delicious or something. Yeah. Like she goes, I know it's waiting for me to fall asleep, and it's not gonna wait for much longer. It and I both know that I will be delicious. Yeah. The lines, weird. the way that voice actor delivered those lines was so
super good.
Like she was like, and it and I will both know that I will be delicious. Yeah. And I was like, whoa.
So I'm going to just like plant a seed for a theory later, but there's one weird thing about the note that Molly writes, and it's the way that she wrote, because she dies that night. That's how she dies. And the way she, says, I'm going to be gone soon, basically is saying like, it sounds like she's dying in the process right there. But the way she writes the note later is that I ate a lot that night when it should be I ate a lot tonight. So it's really weird that like she's dead that morning, basically. Is like because the whenever a scene ends in this game is them dead. Yeah. They're dead. Molly's is obviously fantastical because it's a kid. We don't really know the story. It's the first kid to die. There's a lot of like mystery behind it. But why does Molly write that night when she should have said, I ate a lot tonight? And
okay, I think I know where this theory is
so it's
going.
Very strange. But we'll talk about that more once we have all of the pictures. But just planting a seed for later. Who's next on the list? Odin. Yeah, we talked about Odin. Yeah. Not much more to say, except that he has 2 books on his shrine that are both about death that he wrote.
Oh.
One is like joining the collective, which is an old like thing that I watched a video about last night that was like talking about joining the Great Collective or something like that is basically like join everyone that's dead.
Yeah.
And then the other one is like something about like death and understanding it or something like that. Because
I remember you read that.
Yeah.
Like you read the cover of it.
Yeah, and so because that one caught my attention, and it's like, oh, and I didn't even clock that it was written by Odin. So that one's interesting. That's basically it for him. What's interesting in that room is we also find out how Sven died, because on the desk next to Edie's bed is the picture of him. This is the thing we missed on the. There's a picture of Sven dying. So it talks about, because there's a Edie always tells stories, right? She says her husband died. He was killed by a dragon.
Yeah.
When in reality he died building a dragon slide. There's a picture of the slide in the newspaper. Below it is a picture of him falling off of the slide and dying.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's like, that's another little seed. Why does she have a picture of... Because there's other pictures of Sven there that look normal. They're like totally fine, but like, why is there a picture... Why do you have the picture of him dying?
Yeah, like actively like falling through the air.
Yeah, so it's very strange. But then we go into the bathroom, which was like one of the scariest things for me. Was there's a bathroom with pink shag rugs, and I was like, or carpet in the entire bathroom. I was like, oh, this is disgusting. I hate this so much. But then it's Calvin, which this is a perfect example of why not looking in the peephole. Because it literally, like, we went back and looked through some of the peepholes, and it literally says, oh yeah, my grandpa Sam like spent most of his life sharing his room with his dead brother, or his dead twin. And it was like, oh, gotcha. Because we put together that they are twins because they were born in the same year.
Same year, and also same branch. Yeah. And then when you look at all the doors, when you're just walking by them, it has names on the door and like a drawing, or like they paint the door. Mm-hmm.
And it's split.
And for Sam and Calvin, it's split down the middle. Calvin's is an astronaut. Sam is army.
Army, yeah, like a little soldier. And yeah, so you crawl through and you pop up and you see that it's split in half, and we're like, oh, it's the twins. Like, we're in the twins' room. And Calvin's room is roped off, like completely.
His side is completely blocked off.
Yeah. And
you go and you, like, as if you are a bouncer at a club.
Yeah,
you take down the red velvet rope.
Yeah, you like unclip it. And I don't think there's too much. We missed something in there for Sam, but it was like just a thing saying that he got like overcame his brother's death in like 2 years or something like that. Because it had like most improved player. He had like some kind of trophy. That was basically it. But you go into Calvin. Calvin was a spaceman. He has this like little command center above his bed. It was super cute, and that's where his shrine is. It's a little helmet with inside is a note that Sam wrote about his brother, about how he wants to remember his brother. And basically, there's not much to this. Like,
it's not as intricate as Molly's.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Oh, okay, so there's gonna be a mix.
Yeah.
Basically, Calvin is on a swing, and he's got a broken leg. He's got in a cast, and he's just on a swing on the tree outside. And he's swinging, and the tree is like next to a cliff. So he's swinging, and basically the whole thing is like.
Sam is like blaming himself. He was like, maybe if I told him that wrapping around the tree while you swing is impossible, he wouldn't have tried it.
Yeah.
Maybe if the wind didn't pick up that day.
Yeah. Calvin talks about how Calvin, like, when he sets his mind to something, he just does it. And so
you're playing as Calvin swinging his legs.
Yeah, and you start
gaining actual momentum.
Huge momentum. And basically Calvin flies off. He
wraps around the tree multiple times. He wraps around
the tree, in which is true, because if you go outside, the tree, the swing is wrapped around. It's still wrapped. And so he launched himself basically
into the ocean.
Yeah.
And
died. So that's Calvin's. Not really much more to that. There wasn't some weird. It was just like he wanted to fly and he flew. Like, that's the poetic way that they frame it.
Yeah.
Next is Barbara, right?
Yep.
Barbara's is crazy. Barbara's was like the most unsettling, but now like in retrospect it's not scary at all.
Yeah.
But it definitely was like Barbara's whole thing was she was just like she was a child star for about 2 years, and then everyone forgot about her. She had a really good scream. She was in a Bigfoot movie, and she was a child star, and that's it. And then she kind of was like, quote unquote, a has-been after that at like 16 years old. And so everybody else, so it's been a note, it's been a letter, it's been the viewfinder. Sven didn't have anything besides like just a newspaper. And we didn't play as him because he's not
part of the family.
Yeah. He married in. And then with Barbara's, it's a comic book. Because
people wrote, since she used to be like
a celebrity,
they're like, celebrity death, profit off of this. So they wrote about like what people think happened that night. And they put it into like a horror comic book.
A Tales from the Crypt style horror comic book. And you play in the comic book. Like when you play as Barbara, you're in the comic book, and it's like it's first person still, but it's like cell shaded. And basically like the premise is
she was gonna go out do something
to a convention for like monster
Halloween
movies, yeah,
and then
which is her birthday is Halloween, which is not addressed in this story
at all. You only see it on a headstone.
We didn't notice that until the headstone, because it just says on the family tree it just says the years that they were born and they died, not the date. And when you get to the cemetery, which is a little after this, is when you actually see the dates, and we're like, she died on her birthday. She was born on Halloween. Why is no one talking about this?
And like that's such a perfect like, oh yeah, the reason that she was so perfect for my friend Bigfoot and the Scream was because she was born on Halloween. She was born to do this.
Yeah, and it's so weird that it's not addressed at all in this story. But basically her she's getting ready. The problem was she's gone through puberty now, and her voice is different, so her scream isn't there.
And then
her boyfriend Rick, is
Rick or Richard, I don't remember.
Is like trying to help her,
because he's her number one fan.
Yes, and for some reason he has crutches. They don't explain that. He doesn't have like a cast or anything like that. It's very strange. But it's a typical slasher thing, right? Yeah. Like, but the setup is that Sven screams from down in the basement. Barbara goes to check. Edie is like, "Oh, Edie or Barbara, you have to stay home and watch
your
Walter,
brother,
which is her younger brother, because
we need to take your dad to the emergency room.
Yeah, because he cut himself with the bandsaw.
Yeah,
and so
I thought it was a table saw.
Table saw, whatever, a saw, very dangerous woodworking tool. And so she has to stay. And that's what's weird is another thing is she's not that upset about it.
No.
Like she's looking for, this is supposed to revitalize her career. And she doesn't really complain that much about it.
She was not upset, but like she was frustrated.
Yeah.
Because then her boyfriend literally goes, okay, so I hear some frustration, but I don't hear like actual horror.
Yeah.
And she's like, get out.
Yeah. So it's very strange. But then it basically devolves into a classic like slasher flick.
Oh yeah, hey, like the radio's constantly playing about how there's
hooligans
and then a claw.
Yeah, the hook man. Because when did she die? Because this is like a story that
1960.
Yeah, which is like this is literally
She was born 44, died 60.
This is literally like the classic. The classic like, oh, the hook was in the car, like afterwards. Like this is a very popular story that was probably at its height around this time. Now it's like a trope, like the hash slinging slasher. It's very like that's a spoof of this. But at the time, in the 60s, this was like a real scary thing. I don't know if it's based off a true story or not, but that's just kind of how it is. And then it goes, I'm trying to think of the setup. She's downstairs, Walter's upstairs. He screams.
And she goes to check on him. He's not in his bed at all.
His radio is on and his flashlight is on in his bed and
nowhere to be found. Yeah, like in his room.
And so that's when
she hears a thump downstairs. I think.
No, I think
the
it's
door.
I thought. Oh no! So I'm trying to think. No. We're thinking of because she hadn't kicked. We talked briefly that she got kicked out, but we didn't discuss why.
Oh, right.
She goes into the basement because Rick goes down there to check on something, right? Yeah, because we go down there as her, and she has his crutch.
Because he went down he was like, yeah, I'll be back. I'm just going to check it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, because they heard something. That's right. They heard something in the basement.
And he hadn't come up for 30 minutes.
Yes, and so she goes down there to check, and you're like, oh, God. And you have a crutch that you can swing and stuff, and then you go into the fridge, and he pops out, and you smack him in the face. And that's when he gets kicked out. So that's why, because I was like, you have the crutch.
Yeah.
Like, you bring the crutch up there, too, when you go to check on Walter. So, yeah. They get in that little tough, fight, because he tries to scare her to get a genuine scream
back.
Obviously, that doesn't work. But then, yeah, that's when the actual Hookman, shows up at Walter's door. And so you shut it, you lock it, and you go through into Molly's room, which at that time was not sealed. So you go into Molly's room.
But it just wasn't open for ages.
Yes.
And her door hinges. I remember this exact, dialogue. It was like, Molly's room hadn't been opened for ages, and the old hinges creaked as you opened the door, or as she opened the door.
Yeah, and another funny thing is, my thought was, oh, I gotta escape the house. And so what I did was I went to the window that we had been through as Molly, we had been through as Edith, and what the game tells you is oh, Barbara can't leave Walter. And it forces you to go through the door.
It's like, it said that Barbara had thought about leaving the house, but she couldn't stand the thought of leaving her little brother.
Yeah, and so you smack the hook guy with the crutch. He stumbles back. He slips on a roller skate, which is her roller skate. That also is a jump scare earlier when you walk up the stairs the first time. One of the roller skates falls down the stairs, which is, I think somebody uses that as a part of a theory, but
Hookman falls over a ledge
and breaks
a coffee table.
No, he does break the coffee table, but first he breaks the guardrail, and that guardrail is broken still. So this, somebody fell, because that guardrail is fixed with cheap wood in the present day, which we didn't notice. We didn't notice because we weren't looking at that. But it I saw a screenshot, and it's just nailed on to be safe.
Just for the kids to not fall.
But he falls and breaks through the glass coffee table.
And then you go downstairs.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. And then
you hear a knock at the door.
Yes.
Barbara hears whispering coming from inside the house.
Yeah, of course, classic slasher. It's coming from inside the house.
Turns around. There's a bunch of monsters there.
Yeah.
And then
they say surprise.
And they're like, oh, they threw a party for her.
Which, again, you would think at any point in that time they would say for her birthday.
But just says for her.
Yeah, just for her. And she gets all happy, and then the final shot of the comic is them coming to kill her or eat her or whatever, and she gets her scream. And then she dies. Then it cuts to the only thing left the next day was her ear in her
music box.
Yeah, which is another cool thing that this game does is when you relive these moments, it teaches you more secrets about the house.
Yeah.
So in this one, it teaches you, because we interacted with the music box, but apparently there's a key in there that if you
keep turning the music box,
the key comes out and it unlocks the basement. But yeah, so and Rick disappeared too. He was never found again. His crutch was found in the creek outside of the house. And the next thing is
Walter was found underneath his bed the entire time.
Yes. And I'm trying to think of anything else in there, but they never found her body. They never found her body. They
only found the ear with her earring in it.
Yeah. And they found both crutches. One was inside and one was in the creek. And then that's it, really. there's not too much more of it. It's just the comic, and kind of the last page of the comic is the music box with the ear in it, which is kind of funny. But that's it. I'm trying to think if this sets up a lot.
Yeah.
It does. You don't think it does, but it gains access to the basement, which is the first absolutely insane part of this game, in my opinion. All these other things are crazy, people dying, whatever. The Barbara one was kind of weird and mystical, but like going into the basement is that there's a lot of theories about the basement, which I will discuss after we get through the story. We're gonna
have so many stories to finish.
Yeah, we still have a lot of stories. We're gonna try to get through them quick. Some of them are a lot faster, right?
Yeah.
Like Gregory, we're gonna burn through.
Oh, easy.
Gus, right? Gus was one of the babies that died like as he was born. I'm thinking of Gus is
20 or no.
Who is
He was 11.
That's the one. Yeah, Gus's is super fast. He's the one with the kite.
Oh yeah.
His is fast. And then Milton's is super fast because we don't want to talk about it too much because it's a whole other game. But so Barbara's leads to it gives you the information to get the key from the music box, and then what happens after that is you go down to the basement and you go through the same. It's really creepy down there. It's got Sven's old workshop
and all his old blood's still there.
Yeah, his blood is still there. And then you start going into like the final part of Barbara's like journey down in the basement, which is to the fridge.
Yeah.
And you're like, and then what the line was that kind of like. What's funny is we are spoiling the game, but there's a lot of details that we're not talking about because we didn't memorize everything that Edith says, because she says she's narrating basically this
entire thing.
Yeah. But one thing that stuck out to me because of what happens next is that she says that I always saw Grandma Edie bring packages down to the basement, and no one was allowed down there. And then you open up the fridge, and there's like... Oh,
and also Walter had disappeared after Barbara's death.
Yes, Walter disappeared after Barbara's death. And what happens is, like, you open up the fridge, and there's, for the second time, because... We already have, like, Molly's wardrobe has a door behind it. There's a door, like a vault door behind the fridge. And so you go down there, and it's like a dark, dank, like, tunnel. And then all of a sudden, like, lights start turning on. And
it's filled with preservative, like food.
Canned foods. Like...
Peanut butter,
peaches.
Peaches specifically.
Yeah, that was the big one. And then you're in this little bunker. And you realize it's Walter's bunker. And the interesting thing was, like, when we were like, who, like, we don't really know who Walter is, and we looked and like
we looked for all the rooms, and Walter didn't he
didn't have one, or he might have.
He did, but it was emptied out.
Yeah,
that's where Edith played when she was younger.
Yes, that's right. That was the first room you get to go into. It's the only one that wasn't sealed off. And so basically, Walter is living in there.
He's paranoid from whatever killed his sister.
And what was interesting is, like, Walter is 57 when he dies. Like, he's clearly the oldest, like, out of everybody, all these other deaths and stuff. So it was very interesting to be like, he stands out among everybody else, because everybody else is like, I think the next, like, oldest is like Sam or something like that, not counting Edie, who's 93.
I don't know how she was able to do that.
But it's very interesting, because we're like, why is Walter so old? And it's because he talks about it. He lives in a bunker for 30 years, like literally 30 years. And so it's very...
He literally, for his window, was a painting and a light above it.
Yep. So
didn't see the light of day for 30 years.
Yeah, so he's like in there for a really long time. And then you play as Walter. You read his note, and it's basically his note that he says he's going to leave.
Yeah, he's like, I'm getting out of this. Like, I'm done being paranoid.
Yeah, I'm done. He's like, even a monster can sound like a friend, kind of thing. And so he like fully leaves finally, and he's like,
the whole thing. So the reason why he started leaving that day is because for every day for those 30 years there was shaking happening to the bunker, and that day the shaking stopped, and he was like, well, at this point shaking stopped. I've been alone for 30 years. I need out. I need to see the sun. I need to, even if it's just for one more day. Who knows what's going to happen out there?
Exactly.
But if it's just one more day that I see the sun, I'll be happy.
And so you play as Walter, and like, because it even shows like his calendar like is 2005, and we checked and we're like, when did he die? 2005. And we're like,
it ended April 1st.
Yeah, April 1st. That's when he last. So he probably died on March 31st, but yeah, we could have checked that on the gravestone. But basically he like goes down. There's a little hatch that he goes down through, and there's more preservatives and like what I'm assuming is his bathroom, which is disgusting.
It's just a pit.
Yeah, and then there's a sledgehammer, and he breaks through a wall, and he goes out, and there's a that's where there's a train tracks, and I was like, oh god, he's gonna get hit by a train.
And so what Eric does is he makes him walk on the other side of the train tracks where he's not walking right in between.
Yeah.
But the same thing that how Eric was talking about earlier in the spoiler-free section of like it brings your attention back.
It pulls you. It
pulled him back onto the train tracks.
Yeah. So pulls him on, and then he dies. But yeah, it was pretty funny. Like I was just like, oh man. But he basically he's like, I can already feel the sun on my face is the last words of the note, and then he gets hit by a train. But yeah, that train is actually like a little seed for a theory that we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, it's like he lived underground for 30 years. And then who's next on your list?
Sam.
It is Sam? Okay. I think I want to skip Sam for now and talk about, because I think chronologically it'll make more sense if we talk about Gus. Because Gus...
Well, I mean, chronologically, if we want to do that, it's Gregory, then Gus.
No. Like, I'm talking about, like, actual time. Because Gregory dies, or Gus dies around the same time as Walter.
Hold on, let me look at that.
Yeah, it's because it's part of one of the theories that I read.
Gus is 82. Where's Walter? Walter is 2005.
Interesting. Okay. So I read somewhere that what Gus does, like his death affects the train. But okay, we'll talk about that later then. So Sam is next on the list because we've already got Molly, Barbara, Calvin, and then we skipped over to Walter, and now it's Sam, which is
Edith's grandpa,
Dawn's dad, which is important.
Dawn is Edith's mom.
Yeah, which I think we mentioned, but just in case, she hasn't really.
We've been talking a lot.
And it is interesting looking at the drawings. It's interesting because like Dawn is the only one with she's wearing a cross. Right? And I don't know if it's ever really talked about, but like no one else is wearing like a cross or anything like that. So I don't know if maybe that like the whole her being more religious thing is like one of the reasons why she
wasn't telling her the stories.
Yeah, or the riff she had with her grandma or anything like that. But yeah, so then what we do is you go through as Edith, you go through the same thing as Walter did on his last day. You go down, you go out through the hole that he made, and then you see his little altar out there that just says it's Walter's altar. And it has like a little train on there. And then one of the things we didn't notice was in Walter's his bunker is the other crutch. He has it up on the wall.
Oh.
Yeah. Which I thought was weird. I was like, why does he have the crutch? That's very strange. It's not like it was Barbara's, it was Rick's.
Yeah.
Like, it's very weird. But this goes back to the other thing that stood out to me was when Edith talks about how Edie would bring packages. She was bringing packages because she knew Walter was down there.
Yeah.
He was literally like Bruno. Like
he literally said he was Brunoing it out.
Yeah, he was like living in the walls. Which is interesting because like it's just, like in Encanto, like, which is funny because somebody told us to watch Encanto randomly on our Twitter, but
maybe that's why.
Maybe
they're like, hey,
Hey, there's a Bruno in this game. But what's her face? Mirabelle's mom. I don't know her name. She knows that Bruno's there because she makes extra food. Throughout the movie, she always makes an extra thing of food, and like
she always leaves out arepas.
And you
for
see
the rats to take.
Yeah, and you see that Bruno is eating them in the film. So like just like her, like Edie knew that Walter was still alive and down there and providing him food, which is really weird. Like, why are you helping your son just be down
a hermit?
There? Yeah, it's very strange. Also, Walter looks like David Letterman, which is hilarious, and sounds a little like him too, which I wonder if it was intentional. But now you're outside. This is where you walk through the back. This is where you finally get to go to the cemetery, which is weird. So we should have looked exactly at Walter's, like it was right after. But you get to walk the shoreline, and you get a better view of the house that's sunken in the water, and you walk through the pet cemetery, which has a bunch of.
There's like.
It's all like. They're all the birds have names that are like similar. I forget, they end in like ly, right, or something like that.
Like Dungy.
Yeah, and then there is a, which is another like funny thing is like they mentioned there's a stray cat that they named Molly. So I was like, that's weird. Like, why did you name a cat after your like dead aunt or something like that? But whatever. And then there's 2 reptiles. We only saw one. We only saw
Bob the snake.
But there's a bearded lizard named Rob. So like they're just like fully into naming conventions like that, which is a little funny. But you walk through, and then one of the most potent lines in the whole game is like when Edith says, "What kind of family finishes building the cemetery before the house?" Which is like, yeah, that's super weird, man. Like, why did they do that? But then you go through that, and you get to see, like, that was the first time that we actually noticed the house.
Yeah.
Was because it has Odin, his statue is like him sinking down on the house, and Sven and Edie like pleading for him to come, and he's just like looking out into and what he's looking out into off of the cliff is the house, and you're like, the house is right there. Like, it's literally the house that Odin was trying to bring to Washington is right there, and you can see it.
And that's why Edie and Sven were like, "Hey, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
We're literally, you could swim to our shoreline.
Yeah,
It's
so crazy. Because what it makes it seem like in the viewfinder is that a huge wave came in, but then at that point it's like, how did Edie and Sven
and baby Molly
survive? Like, it makes no sense. So. That was interesting. That was like mind blowing. I was like, what? Like, it's right there. You can see it. Like, I could throw a baseball and hit it. Like, but yeah. So that was really crazy. That was a wild revelation. And then that's when you find out another thing, because Edith is 17 years old. She's clearly really skinny. Because whenever you see her arms and hands,
she's tiny.
They're thin.
But when you look down,
like,
you see her shirt.
Yeah, you just see her shirt, and then she says a couple things about like it being tighter and like bellies and things like
Odin or Sven made this for smaller hands and smaller bellies.
Yeah, and it was like, interesting. That was weird. And then like,
and then I remember this exact line. She's like, had I known that this adventure would have led for me to do more climbing and crawling, I wouldn't have come 22 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, and we were like, what? What? And then, it was like, it was crazy. It was like, okay, so that's when it's like revealed that she's writing this to her unborn child. And you're like, oh, okay, got it. So this has already happened, right? Like, at this point.
This is her just telling the kid step by step what's happening.
Diary. And so you crawl across
a tree.
Yeah, a tree onto the roof, and then go into Grandpa Sam's bedroom, which that one was wild, man. Like, his was so simple. Like, his perspective was so simple. It wasn't like anything crazy. But Sam was older. He was, I don't know how old he was when he died. He was 33. So pretty young still.
Yeah.
And he was into capturing photography.
And hunting.
And hunting.
Okay, this was never mentioned
Mm-hmm.
like at all in the story, but when you look at like his china cabinet that he has like all of his war things
Yeah,
when
all
he
his
was part
medals.
of the war,
Yeah.
he had a Purple Heart.
Yeah, that was weird.
And he
too.
had so many like
And he's 33.
he had so many like medals of like honor.
Yeah.
And like it isn't mentioned. It's mentioned that he is a like wildlife nut, that he likes hunting
And photography. Yeah, and like one thing I'm gonna plant another seed. Lots of seed planting. Is that one of the things is like he was obsessed with photography because he like wanted to catch the curse in action, and like he did.
Yeah.
So basically, what happens is you're playing the day he dies is he's on a trip with Dawn when she's younger.
And he said that it's a trip that she's never gonna forget.
Yeah, that was the first thing we're like, bro. We know you're gonna die because we're playing as you. So you're gonna die on this trip, and we don't know how. And so you basically, as Sam, you're taking photos, and then you're taking another photo. You take a couple photos, and you take one of, and then you're finally taking a picture of Dawn lining up a shot to kill a deer. And you take the shot, and she fires a gun, shoots a deer, and it's like this crazy action shot of the deer getting shot in the neck, and you're like, whoa, that was crazy. And then he's setting up the camera to like take a selfie and then like get the framing right.
And Don's like, Dad, I don't think it's dead. It's still twitching. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh no, they do that. It's fine.
It's totally normal. And then
Picks up the buck's head.
Yeah.
And then the buck rears up like still alive.
Yep.
He falls off the cliff.
Literally in the photo.
The photo of it is him falling and Don going, Dad!
Yeah, like
reaching out for him.
Yeah, so like literally he caught it in action. Like he caught the whole death, like the curse happening. And it was like, oh, okay, gotcha. He like achieved like what he kind of wanted to do. Like, why was he obsessed? He like became like more familiar with death. He like pursued it because like he was hunting, he was in the war, and now he's taking photos and he's doing all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense that he's trying to like capture the curse in action. We have Sam, and then I'm trying to think, does that reveal?
It goes into Gregory and
yeah,
Gus's
it just goes
room.
right in, right? There's no like secret.
Because his room is connected to
connected, yeah, to his
two sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to think if there's anything else in there.
Oh, the bed is halfway made.
Yeah, which was weird
because he got divorced with Kay after.
Yeah, he got divorced
the
with
twins
Kay.
were born.
And he got divorced with Kay, and you're like, oh, okay. But
okay.
like, yeah, okay, but like it was just kind of creepy that
I don't think you understood.
No, I got it.
Damn it.
I just thought it was like a little creepy that like his bed was left partially unmade. Like it just like was unsettling to me. All the other beds were made in the house. Like everything else was made. So why was his like partially unmade? I don't know. It was weird. But yeah, you go through. His room is connected directly to Gus and Gregory, and you do Gregory first, right? Because he's
a quick one.
He is also he's the younger brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were twins.
No, the twins are Calvin and Sam.
Okay, I thought there was two sets of twins.
No, Gregory was 1976 and Gus is 1969, and Dawn is actually the oldest at 1968. I didn't know that. I never clocked that. But so you do Gregory's first. Gregory was one we were not looking forward to because it was the
baby.
Yeah, he was born 1976, died 1977, and we're like, how did that happen? And basically, his got really weird because it was like, the note was a divorce letter.
Yeah,
it was Kay.
Sam writing to Kay like, hey,
yeah,
like it's not your fault, blah blah blah. And then it goes into how Gregory used to laugh when no one was there or when he thought he was alone. And he was like, oh, it's probably because he made up like this cool world in his mind.
Yeah. And so you play as you're Gregory and you're playing you have a frog in your hand. Basically, like you start as a frog and like there's a rubber duck and it's like following you, like following the baths, and you play as a frog and you do all these kind of like.
You get bath toys in, you get bubble bath.
Yeah, you knock everything into.
You get the same bubble bath that Eric had when he was a baby.
Yeah, apparently, which was weird. And it was probably not the same brand, but it's the bottle that's supposed to look like that. But then while this is happening, Kay is on the phone with Sam.
Yeah.
So we don't know if they are in the process of the divorce at this point.
Well,
or...
she said that she didn't want to talk to him.
Yeah, and he calls twice.
Yeah.
He calls the first time.
She's like, "Oh, Gregory, it's time to go. Get out." And she's like, "Oh, hold on."
And then you're just still playing, and then she comes back and she undoes and she drains the water.
And then after she drains the water, he calls again.
For some reason, she puts the plug back
in,
which is weird. It's like, why? And so then, as Gregory, you play as the frog and you hit
the water,
and so you drown. So that's how Gregory dies. There's really not too much more to it, but he dies because
he was left unattended in the water. Yeah,
and then he unplugs the you do unplug the cork or the stopper, and so some of the theories are that he got sucked in and was held there from the suction because the water was full, and then he's under there being pulled. Creepy, really sad. Which led to Kay and Sam getting a divorce, and then that leads directly into Gus, who is a rebel, which you see because he has a red mohawk,
red mohawk, and the punk
the bracelets,
with the spikes.
Yeah, and so his is very, very fast as well.
His dad was getting remarried.
Yeah, Dawn wrote a poem for Gus, which was interesting even to Edith. She's like, "Oh,
my mom never wrote."
Yeah. And so you're flying a kite, and it's kind of cool. You hit these different things, and you highlight the words in the air.
Yeah.
And then Dawn reads them. And basically, the gist of it is, like we said, we're not going to really, unless it's pertaining to a theory or it's an important thing that stood out to us, we're not going to, we didn't memorize everything. It would be like memorizing a book.
Yeah.
Basically what happens is the wedding is happening.
He's we don't need another mom.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't want a stepmom. He's flying the kite, and he's away from the wedding, the venue, and the venue is the backyard.
Yeah, and the venue is a tent.
Yeah. Well, at first it's outside, and you actually are flying, and then it starts to rain, and there's storms coming in. He's still flying the kite, and they all go inside, and they turn the music up, which is the other pertinent thing is they turn the music up. And one of the things that we noticed was when you're walking as Edith on the beach line is that a huge totem pole had fallen over. And
totem pole was fallen over, and there was a chair in a tree.
Yes. And the other thing is the totem pole wasn't a typical Native American totem pole with eagles, bears, whatever.
It was a people.
It's the kids. It's all the kids. It's all Sven's kids or whoever. And so I was like, well, kind of know where this is going. And then it went a little ethereal, and the tent gets picked up by the storm, and then
Gus is dragged with it.
Yeah. And so that's how he dies. Or the totem pole falls on him. I don't know exactly which one. It was kind of
because what I saw was when because the kite was practically acting like the storm, picking up all of the chairs and stuff. And then it picked up the tent. Mm-hmm. And what I saw...
The tent turned into a jellyfish. That was pretty dope.
Yeah, but inside that little jellyfish thing was a human body. Mm. So I think that's how it happened, was he got flung into the air, just like Calvin.
Yeah, I remember you saying something about seeing him. I didn't catch it, but yeah, I mean, it's either that or a totem pole fell on him. Whatever. He died, he died due to, the parents not really paying attention to him because they were more focused on having the wedding, even though they had a big old house that they could have been inside of. And then next up is...
Milton.
Milton's is quick. We're going to briefly talk about it because there's not much information. Because, which we found out later, is Milton goes missing because there was this one thing that Edith says. She's like,
maybe if I'm the last remaining, or the other.
Yeah, one of two.
One of two remaining.
Yeah. And we're like, who's still alive? Because everyone on here
has a death
date. And we're like, interesting. And so what we missed on the first walkthrough was I took the the woodland path to the house, so I missed the deer that you can see. And then instead of going to the front door, I went to the garage first, and that just led through the story. But on the steps leading up to the house is a bunch of missing posters that says Milton Finch on it. Yeah. So you're like, oh, okay. So you could have known that Milton went missing. He never was confirmed dead. But basically, Milton was on his 10th birthday, right? Is what they say.
Yeah, I think so.
Because they declare him dead, quote unquote, in 2003. Mm-hmm. But what they say is, on Milton's 10th birthday, Edie built him or when did Sven die? No, they don't say. But Milton got a castle.
Yeah.
A beautiful, cool. It's like an offshoot on everything else on the roof, and it's like a literal like old school castle, and it's like white and it's really distinct. And this is where we were like, wow, this is crazy.
And also to note, in all of the secret passages, Milton had been in them.
Oh, yeah.
And he drew in them.
Yeah.
Because he is a very artistic person.
Yeah, and when you go into the tower, it's like beautiful art. And like we stared at this one for a minute because I was like, wow, I would straight up hang this in my house.
Funny thing about that one that I have later.
Oh, that's the cover.
Yep.
Well, we could talk about that right now because that's like basically it. Is that Milton's is my favorite, because I'm so excited to play that game. It's called The Unfinished Swan, and they confirm the developer Giant Sparrow confirmed later that
in Reddit that Milton is the main king of that story.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, that's sick. But like Milton's like his death thing, like his death book, basically.
It's a
his little flip book
that he made of himself,
and it's beautiful, and it shows him painting a black door with a yellow doorknob and walking through it and disappearing.
And that's it.
Literally,
so
no one found him. No one knows where he is.
In the flip book, he walks through the door, and then there's 10 empty pages.
He waves, and that's it. Yeah, and he's gone. And that's it. Like, no one knows where. But the big thing that he says, that Edith says, is after Milton disappeared,
Mom sealed up all the doors.
So that's another seed for a theory. Is like, why did she seal up the doors when Milton disappeared? But basically, that's Milton. Like, there's nothing else. We don't know what happened to him. But it did. What we do know is that it affected Lewis a lot.
Mm-hmm. Lewis is his older brother.
The oldest. Milton was the middle child. Lewis was the oldest, and Edith is the youngest. And Edith would have been barely 4.
Yeah.
At the time Milton disappeared.
I'm thinking about this too,
mm-hmm.
and this just planted in my brain, but the 2 older brothers and then the 1 youngest sister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you.
It's me. Except I'm not 22 weeks pregnant.
So it's Lewis is 1988, and then Milton is 5 years younger, and then Edith is 4 years younger. Or no, 7 years younger.
Edith is 11 years younger than Lewis.
Yeah.
And 7 years younger than Milton.
Yeah.
I have a 7-year difference with my oldest brother,
mm-hmm.
and a 3-year difference with my middle brother.
So it's a little further.
But there's still probably.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's it is. I know when she said she was 17, because we forgot that this game came out in 2017. So when it said oh yeah, she's 17, we're like, what the heck? But yeah, so that was Milton's, and then this was one of the craziest things of the game is when you walk out of Gregory and Gus's room, you just see the castle. And you're like, oh, I'm just gonna walk right there. And I remember I was like, well, we didn't really gain anything from Milton's. We didn't gain a secret passage. So I was like, how are we gonna? And then when I left the castle, I saw a
staircase,
and I was like,
side.
That was literally that I walked right by, and I was like, I wonder if I could have just gone straight there, because I think I read somewhere that somebody didn't ever find Milton's thing,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, I guess it is missable if you just go up those stairs. There's nothing in Milton's room that does anything for you besides just show you that he disappeared, because there's no death, there's no nothing. That's it. You don't play as him. It's more similar to Odin's, where it's like a viewfinder.
Yeah.
And that's it. It just tells a quick story.
And then also a cute thing about that is when Edith draws him,
Yeah.
She drew him in his art style.
His art style. She draws her everyone else as like her art style. But yeah, Milton is a little like Doug looking dude. But yeah, he does look like Doug.
He does. I have seen that.
Oh wow, that's impressive. But then we go up to Lewis, which that's where. So you start. Well, first we actually go into basically where Lewis, Milton, Edith, and Dawn lived. Like they lived
They're at
on
the top of
the upper levels,
yeah.
like even higher, because like you go up, we're still like we're on the roof basically when we're when you go into the entrance of Milton's castle, but then you go up the stairs and you're on like the 5th level or 4th level or something like that, and that's when it's like you go up these rickety steps and then you're in a garden with everybody's name on it. It's got Milton, Lewis, and Edith and Dawn. They each have their own little garden, and then you go into
Milton's is all upside down flower pots with ink
on
them.
Yeah, it was very like creative. And then you have like a classroom with just 2 chairs, and it's clear that like Dawn was teaching her kids. Like so she was being homeschooled, which explains a lot. Like these kids are all kind of like super
sheltered
weird.
And
yeah. And then you go through that, and then you see a boat. And
just sticking outside of
it's just a boat
side of the house,
and it's clearly Lewis's, because like it's the one thing they talk about is that like Lewis works at a cannery for salmon, because they tell you that pretty early on, because there's a bunch of canned of food.
And she's like, oh yeah, ever since Lewis started working at the cannery,
we
got tired of eating salmon, except for our cat Molly.
Yeah, which didn't clock.
We didn't know at that point.
Yeah. And so basically Lewis is one of the most unique and crazy things I've ever played and experienced in a game. I would recommend you
talk about it.
No, Jess, you just do that eventually. Like one time you come over and just play his, because you can, after you beat the game, you can go and play anybody's chapter. That like mechanic.
You have one actual like. You have to
start off as just controlling with the right stick. You're controlling his right hand, grabbing salmon,
chopping their head off,
putting it under a guillotine, and then throwing it onto a conveyor belt. You just do that over and over again.
And
that's
then
his job.
He starts imagining.
Well, the big thing is.
Oh, his letter was a note from a psychiatrist.
Yeah, his letter is very interesting. Yeah, like you said, it's the note from a psychiatrist, and it's clear, like right from the start, the way it was worded is like it's written to Dawn, and it's like okay, so. And it's from his psychiatrist, and it's like, okay, so...
Also, to mention, his room was decked out with a bunch of illicit substances.
Yeah. Not a ton.
Not a ton, but, you know, there's posters, there's a hookah.
Yeah, I didn't see anything, like...
He didn't have any...
Like, hard drugs.
No.
But it just seemed like, yeah, it was... Which is interesting. Like, yeah, he clearly smoked pot and wanted it legalized. And what's interesting is he died in 2010, right?
Yeah.
So he was close. Like Washington legalized it very soon. Like he almost
soon after.
But the way it's written, the letter from the psychiatrist, it's very obvious. It's like, okay, yeah, Lewis killed himself.
Yeah.
And you're like,
she was like, yeah, it was a substance abuse thing too. And
yeah.
blah blah blah.
And he said he started changing back in January. But yeah, if you want to talk about like how it, so he, like we said, he's doing the conveyor belt thing, and at first you're just controlling. The right stick and shoving salmon under a guillotine, throwing them onto the conveyor belt.
And then as soon as like after you do that for like maybe 10 times, this little 2D maze pops up, and the therapist or the psychiatrist is talking about how she thought he was doing better because he was imagining more, because Milton's death really took like a toll on Lewis.
Yeah. His disappearance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
He didn't die. We don't know. No one knows.
But so his mom actually got him the job at the cannery.
Yes.
And so, you know, his psychiatrist was like, yeah, like I thought he was doing better. He was starting to imagine things. Like he was being creative again.
He was like
he was a star employee. So she encouraged him to like imagine while he was at work. And so he started this like imagination of like he went through this labyrinth, and then he founded a town called Louisville.
Yeah.
And
Well, what the crazy thing is it starts as a 2D old school, like just labyrinth. You're just walking around, and then all of a sudden, like as the psychiatrist in the story says, like, oh yeah, I encouraged him to imagine. It shifts to a 3D like isometric view, and you're still. And so the whole time I'm doing this, like, you're not like watching the dude walk. I'm controlling the right stick to chop salmon this whole time while also controlling with the left stick this little dude that's walking, and it is a lot harder than you think. And so I'm controlling both sticks, and every time the graphics, quote unquote, upgrade, the imaginary world gets bigger and takes over more, but you can always see the fish. The fish are always there, and the fish are actually a part of the story, because like sometimes you'll hit a roadblock in the imagination world, and you have to cut the fish to it opens
open it up.
Yeah, and then it lets you like choose your own path. Like all of a sudden now you're a boat, and it like
it's like, oh, he wandered upon a beautiful prince or a handsome princess.
Yeah, and so I picked Prince because I was like, yeah, let's go, gay rights. Like it was like, yeah, it makes sense. Like let's do it. And so we do the Prince thing, and like you choose a couple other things, and like then all of a sudden like you're fully, it's just your imagination, but I'm still chopping fish this whole time. And
like the imagination took up the entire screen except for the bottom little part where there's still fish coming at you,
and you can't see the guillotine.
You can't.
But
just
at this point
I've
been doing it for like 10 minutes, so I know exactly where it is. So I'm becoming Lewis,
because
like
they said that the psychiatrist said that he just started to drone out, and like Dawn had to beg him to come home.
Yeah, he would literally just keep working. He was just stuck there because he never wanted to leave his imagination. And then eventually the last part of the imagination world that you take part of is like you're the king, and you open up a big door, and now all of a sudden you're in the cannery, and you're walking, and I look down, and I'm the king still. At first I thought I was just Lewis, and I was like, and I look, and I'm like, I'm the king.
And then as you walk through the cannery, you see Lewis,
and no one else is there.
It's like after closing hours, he's still chopping,
but nothing's there.
He's just moving his hand.
He's doing the motion, and that's it. Nothing's happening.
And you keep walking towards this like bright light.
Yeah.
It's very, I mean, you walk towards the light.
Yeah, exactly.
But it transforms you back into, but you're fully submersed into the imaginary world.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, now all you have to do is accept your crown.
Yeah.
You kneel before the king.
Yeah. Well, as you're walking up to the like throne, you can start to see that it's like a guillotine. Like the prince, the handsome prince, is standing there, like in front of the thing, and it's a guillotine. And you're like, oh, okay, got it. So this dude like chopped his head off at work.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like
think of that contamination for everyone's cancer.
God, that was intense. I was like,
yeah, it was like,
because like, yes, you know, there's a lot, like suicide happens in games a lot, happens in media a lot, but like the thought of doing something that like hardcore, basically, and like
because of an imagination world,
is crazy.
But yeah, get your head chopped off, and then
the final one is you
Dawn.
Yeah, you go through, you finally get to Edith's like space, like with where she lived in, because it was very interesting, because Milton had his castle, which was on the lower level, and then it goes Lewis, and then above that is like its own little apartment duplex house where it was clear that Edith and Dawn lived.
Yeah,
because you walk in there, and it's there's a bunch of missing posters of Milton piled up. There's a kitchen, and then this is where we finally, because there's a point, I forget when Edith says this, but she says that that her mom got weird after her dad died. Doesn't talk about how Sanjay, her dad, dies at all. But then you go into that room and you see a closet with a picture of Sanjay, and you see like a reflector vest
and a
then
badge that says
disaster relief or something like that. And it's like, okay, so he died like helping, like doing a like disaster relief of some kind. And you're like, oh my God, like even he couldn't escape. Like something happened to him. And so, which I mean makes sense. Sven died, and he was married. He stayed married. So then you go into Dawn's, like, her little area, and I don't think
it's just a mini clip of
well,
her.
Well, does that happen then, or does that happen with Edith?
Hold on.
Because I'm trying to remember if it happens in Edith's room. But I think Edith's room is the last room that you do. Like, she just sits down there, and that's the end of the game.
Yeah, it's like you start Edith's story, and then she talks about her mom dying in it.
So it's at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, Dawn and Edith left. They leave the house to escape, quote unquote, the curse, and to escape Edie. And so what you relive is basically the last night that they had together. It was like Edith and Dawn, like, packed up their stuff secretly, and then one day Dawn told Edie that we're leaving. And they didn't talk. They weren't saying it. They weren't speaking to each other until. And also,
Dawn found a hospice care for Edie and was like,
yes.
You can go here.
Yeah, not hospice.
Just
an elder
nursing home.
Yeah, because she wasn't dying.
No,
like they never talk about how she was sick, like, at all.
But she did have an O2 tank.
Yeah, but she was 93.
Yeah, she was 93.
But so Dawn says that Edie and her didn't talk until the dinner of the night that they left.
They were leaving.
And so this is where it got really ethereal. And you basically, I'm still disappointed you can't, like, access the library, but basically, like, you are, as Edith, you're excused from the table.
And Edie says, "Hey, there's a present for you in the library."
Oh, in the hallway.
Yeah,
she says the hallway because because the library is supposed to be sealed. So you walk over, and Edith says that, oh, my mom must not have known about the secret passage to the library, and she didn't know that Edie had a key to it. So you go through there and you walk through, and basically you read a story written by Edie, and it talks about how there was a big earthquake in the middle of the ocean, and the tides were super low, like extremely low, and you could actually see the house, and
you could walk into it.
So you walk into the water, or like where the water normally is, and walk to the house. And basically, the gist is that Edie walked, and she gets lost, and you see
the deer that Sam got.
Yeah, and the deer that you see at the beginning of the game. If you go that way. But yeah, it was interesting because it's like
you see some of the relics of, like, people dying, but you
not
don't
really.
Like,
they're not super.
It's
clear.
like, oh, that's a deer. That could be Sam.
Yeah.
And, like, there was a blinking light, and I was in my mind, I was like, satellite, Calvin.
But it was the buoy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then she gets to the house, and she basically says she lost her way because the fog rolls in, and then she gets to the house, and she walks through the gate. It's just like a picket fence gate, and she opens the gate, and then the house is fully realized, like it's the full house again.
Mm-hmm.
And she says something along the lines of, like, I need you to blah 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 blah, and I hope you
remember these.
And then the top right light in the house turns on, and then you're shot back to reality within this story. And it's Dawn pulling the book away from Edith, and they rip it, and then Edith goes on to say that was the last time she saw Edie. They left that night. You're pulling out of the house, and
they're talking about how the nursing home came the next day,
and she was already gone.
She was already
dead, which is weird. It's another thing, like, she killed herself, like, because she wasn't sick, and it wasn't a nursing home for, like, hospice. It was just like a regular nursing home because she's a 93-year-old lady and her granddaughter is leaving. Like,
yeah,
that's it. And then it's revealed, like, that
they moved around a lot.
Yeah.
And you get to play as Edith with her hand in the window of the car.
That was fun. And then...
but after moving around a lot, the sickness that her mom had got too much.
Yeah.
And she died.
And yeah, I heard... I saw a theory that in every scene that Dawn is in, she has a pink bracelet on. So I think people were talking about like breast cancer. Yeah. And so that's another thing. And then I think that leads into
Edith.
Edith, which it's revealed that Edith is dead.
Yeah, she's like, I hope I can tell you these stories in person and blah blah blah. But if you're already reading this, then I can't. I'm dead.
And basically, which is funny, the game ends. The last thing you control really is you're a baby being birthed, and that's how Edith dies, through childbirth, birthing the son. Which I think I saw somewhere. His name,
Michael.
Yeah, it's like it starts with an M or Matthew or something like that. But it's revealed that, and I didn't even clock it because we see at the end that Edith Finch is dead and her son is putting flowers there. And then when I started the game over, because I was like, oh, okay, I want to go check out a couple more things. You first play as her son with the cast on, and I didn't even
with the
clock
cast and the flowers in your hand.
So he's like that whole time he's just reading that diary on the way to Orca Island to go to the Finch home, which is crazy. So I'm like, that's wild. But yeah, that's how the game ends. Like, it's a really, really crazy thing, and now it's time for theories.
Okay. Do you want to talk about yours, or do you want me
No,
to talk
mine
about
are super long, and I've been talking a lot, so
okay.
You go right ahead.
So I was looking into, so the whole thing of, you planted a seed, and now that I'm thinking about it, it also makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
For Molly,
yeah.
That night Ghost wrote it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your theory?
Well, I was just about how she died, because since she was so imaginative, it didn't tell us how she died. It just says she ate a bunch of things and she thought she was gonna get eaten by the monster. But there's people saying she choked, or she didn't actually eat all the things that she ate before and she starved to death.
Yeah.
But I think she, I don't know. This is a dark twist, or not dark twist, but
all my theories are dark, so
cool. But for a 10-year-old, this is kind of dark. But she was so mad at her mom that she wrote that out, with the guilt of oh, I was so hungry, I had to eat all of this stuff, and then she just made herself choke on something until she died that night.
Gotcha. Okay.
So she wanted to die so that she could be oh, well,
yeah,
that serves you right for not.
Yeah, she wanted to get back at her mom, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So I am going to run through important points that I have before I actually discuss what the theories are. I like that theory. I think it's interesting. Did you see that theory, or did you come up with it on your own?
Well, I saw part of it of she choked on the berries, but that was it. And I was like, well, if she choked on the berries, but she's 10, so she had to have known.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I shouldn't eat this. Or the old carrot. Oh, hey, I probably shouldn't eat that. And the fish, she was cognitive enough to know
not to eat the fish. That's a good point.
So she should have been cognitive enough to know, hey, I shouldn't eat all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what my brain went to. Okay.
I like it. I like that. I definitely like it, because none of these theories that I'm going to present are mine. They're just ones that I found interesting. And I like that you focused on one person, because mine is just
I have one more about Barbara, though.
Go ahead.
So, you know how the radio was talking about the hooligans.
About hooligans that never.
And then.
Yeah. They talk about the hooligans and the hook man, and the hooligans never show up.
Ever.
That we know of. It could have been the monsters.
So.
Got attacked by the mic.
So my theory is that the hooligans and the hookman are not friends, but they're a band together. And the monsters that ate her at the end were actually the band of hooligans that were cannibals.
Oh, interesting.
That's why they couldn't find her body. Yeah. Because they ate it.
Gotcha.
And the only thing that was left is a piece of cartilage.
Yeah.
That you don't really eat.
Yeah.
Especially raw.
Yeah. Interesting.
And especially if they're crazed fans, they're oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, that one is definitely interesting.
That's what I saw online.
Yeah. Oh, you saw that one online?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't see that one. Did you what did you search? Because I just searched up Edith Finch theories and then just kind of went on a
I
roll.
just looked up like a bunch of different, like,
Mm-hmm.
at first You're good.
I
went through like the fandom wiki,
okay, nice.
and like I looked through all of that,
Yeah, I didn't even touch on that.
and then I looked at like I was like, how did Molly die?
Yeah.
So I searched up how
Yeah.
did Molly die in Edith Finch.
Yeah.
And it talked about like, oh, choked, she, one of them was like she fell out the window, and I was like, that
I feel like that's what happened. Like that one feels like the most realistic to me, if it's true. Like if all the stories are true, I feel like the most likely thing is that she fell out the window.
Yeah.
But
because she opened
the other thing is, when we crawl out that window as Edith, there's a platform there.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, is like, why was it locked then? Like, is it just to keep her from leaving? But why would she leave? Like, why is she fully locked in this room? That goes into other theories. But so you were like looking specifics. You were Googling specifics.
And then I was like, okay, Barbara is also left, like, not really completely
that one's kind of weird.
explained.
Yeah.
So I searched up, how did Barbara die? And they're like, oh, band of hooligans, cannibals.
Yeah.
And I was like,
And then Milton obviously was the other one, but that one's specifically an Easter egg.
Yeah,
Literally,
and
just
it went-
to another game. Do you have anything else?
I'm chilling.
Okay.
Go.
So, I'm going to say some of these points. I touched upon the one about Sven's picture of his death that we missed next to Edie's bed, which is weird. I talked about how we think Edie killed herself. The biggest evidence for that is every single door that is sealed off has a death date next to it. Like,
Oh, and Edie's does too.
yes. So who wrote that? Her, obviously. She wrote that before she
Because
died.
Edith hadn't been there.
No one
she
had
hadn't
been
there for
yeah, so
the 10
somebody had to
years.
write that, and obviously she did it herself. So that's like how, for like, confirmed she killed herself. And then I talked about the Molly, how she wrote, like, so that'll go
that night.
Yeah. And then the other one is, so I talked about not writing in the people, don't look in the peoples, because it kind of spoils some stuff that I think is better to discover when you're actually in the room. And then one of the things is there's a line that you do get from looking in the peoples. So the only one I recommend looking in the people is the library, because it doesn't spoil, because you can't ever go in there.
Yeah.
Really. And when you look in, it's just a bunch of books. There's not anything special. But what Edith says is that Edie says to Edith that every Finch is buried in that library. Like, that's the line.
Yeah.
And so that leads into one of the theories. So the theories are, one of the more, the basic one is like, all the stories are true, right?
Yeah.
Everybody just died. They're cursed. Whatever. Then there's the one that's a little different, is that the house ate everyone, that the house is alive, and that the house convinced Odin to bring it to a new place to eat more people, and it almost died, but it's close enough to shore that it still has influence over the new house.
Huh.
And that it's actually eating people, and that's how Milton went into a door and was eaten by the house. And so the other ones, everybody,
And that would explain Molly getting eaten by
disappearing. That one's a little fantastical. The one I believe, and the one that is, there's like videos of and stuff, is that Edie killed everyone.
Yeah, that's what, like.
Yeah, and that what Milton discovered is that Edie is a murderer.
And that's why he
ran away.
He
ran away. And Edith found that out too. Because for me, what somebody pointed out is one of the things that Edith points out when you get to, literally the first thing you can interact with in this game as Edith is a mailbox that says things are overdue and things are not paid and that they're urgent. And when she gets to the house, she points out that the electricity is turned off. And whenever we hit a switch, nothing works. What happens when we go in the fridge?
Oh.
Lights turn on.
Yeah.
Lights are on for the rest of the game after that. So everything after the basement is fake. So the way Lewis died, everything else is fake. The way Milton disappeared, the way Lewis died, everything that happens after going in that basement is fake. Made up by Edith or Edie or Dawn or whoever. because what Milton discovered is he went into the basement and found whatever's in that bunker of like dead bodies or stories or whatever, that Edie killed everyone. And there's a theory that Dawn helped too, and that's how Sam got killed, was she pushed him off the cliff. And she helped with because
also in the picture she's like reaching for him, but it could be that she pushed him. And
all the lights are on after that, after you go in the basement. So the what happens is this is a cyclical thing of people lying about stories, and then Edith goes to the house originally with good intent to tell the true stories to her, now we know it's a son, future son. And what happens is she discovers what's in the basement and then decides to now fabricate her own stories.
Cover it up so that her son doesn't.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, my great grandmother was a murderer.
Yeah. And so one of the big things is there are three actually. There's a thing that says that Edie, we did find this. Remember the newspaper clipping of Edie not leaving during a storm?
Yeah.
And she was a minor celebrity for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And Edith says she loved the attention. Then there's also a thing next to that we didn't read about that I wish we would have, because then maybe we would have put it together.
Isn't it the family of misfortune and fortune?
No. There is a newspaper clipping of a tabloid about a mole man under the Finch house. So Edie uses her son, who she knows about because she's bringing packages to Walter, to him. She tells a tabloid about a mole man for attention. Then the other thing that we didn't pick up on is there are folders for two people, at least two people. There's probably more, but there's two around this same. All of this is in the same area, and it's all right next to the photo of Sven dying too. It's all in Edie's room. It says Barbara Concepts and Molly Concepts. What does that mean? What it means is we've already seen that, and she also sells the story of. She tells the story of Sven dying. She sells that to the newspaper too. It's that she's okay selling these stories to people for profit.
Yeah.
And that's how Barbara's story got made into a comic book. She sold off the story of her daughter dying and disappearing for attention and profit. And that's what the concepts of Barbara are. It's like these concepts of stories to make her a minor celebrity, to continue the story of the Finches and make them more like popular and mystical and all that. And it's like the Barbara one, that's why it makes sense that it's like mystical. You know, it's like a children's book. That's probably what she wanted to write it about, is like Barbara or Molly turning into a
bird, a cat, and a shark.
And so, and Edie has all these other like, you know, all this other stuff of like, yeah, Milton found something, he left, and then that's why I think Edie killed everyone.
Yeah, I mean
when I was reading a theory, and it points out the electricity, and that when you go into the basement, which I guess would make sense that the lights would be on in a bunker, like they're probably made
backup generator.
But it's been years. Like it's been 13 years.
2005 to 2017. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's a long time. But then they pointed out that the lights are on in the rest of the house. Like there's lights because it's nighttime.
Yeah.
By the time you get out of the, by the time you get back into the house, into Sam's room, it's nighttime. And there's no lights in Sam's room. And the reason Sam's picture or like story is not fantastical, not crazy, it's because he has photo evidence of how he died. We don't know exactly if the buck killed him or if Dawn pushed him off, but Edie can't lie about it.
Yeah. Because
there's a photo of it. And that's why it's tucked away in like a vanilla folder, like hidden away.
And it's not like it was on his shrine, but it wasn't like, oh, look at this. It was like
tucked in kind of, and then the other thing is Edie is like extremely negligent towards, like, this whole family is extremely negligent towards their kids.
Yeah.
Like we have Gregory, who died from drowning. You know, there might have been murder there, but it might have just been an unfortunate thing. Gus. Extremely negligent.
They literally were just like, oh, you know what? My son flipped me off
Yeah.
and is still playing with a kite even though there's a storm. Turn up the music.
Turn up the music. Calvin. They put a swing on a tree next to a cliff. Like,
And like even when Edie called and said like, hey, dinner's ready.
yeah.
She only called once.
Yep.
And like wasn't like, hey, get off the swing.
Yep.
It's time to eat.
Yep. And then who else do we have? Molly. She was sent to bed at 10 years old, hungry enough to eat whatever. Like, even if that story is true and that's how she died, like, she's starved to death.
Yeah.
She was killed, and then the other thing that they point out is
like the only one who actually like made sure that one of their children was okay or actually two of her children.
Yeah, Sam seemed like a pretty good father.
Yeah.
But he also was like extremely negligent to himself. Like the way he died, if that's how he died from the buck, it's like there's a cliff right here. Like and that's a wild animal. So like drag it off and like move so. But
like Dawn like made sure that Lewis had a job and like tried to help him, got him a psychiatrist. She moved Edith out as soon as like everything was going bad.
Yeah.
But like, why didn't you move your kids out sooner?
Yeah, that one always the theory that Dawn helped, I don't fully buy into, but Edie being a murderer, I like fully buy into. And it was like that, and that's why Sam's is so boring, is because that is just how he died.
Yeah.
He got pushed off a cliff. Whereas like Calvin flew and Gregory was this like
imaginative little boy.
But and Gus like rode the storm.
But that one was written by Sam to Kay. So.
Yeah, but we don't know like exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And then there's the other thing is that all these people have schizophrenia. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. Because it's because I forget what they say exactly about Gregory, but they say that he laughs when he's alone, and that he reminds him. Sam says he reminds him of his brother Calvin, who also like clearly had like some other. There's some other details about Calvin that they say that's kind of like he had something going on, and Edie obviously is like mentally ill.
Yeah. And she was also on like 10 different medications.
Exactly. That she couldn't take with alcohol, which she did.
Especially on the night she died.
Yes, she was drinking. Like that's what Dawn tries to stop her from doing that. And the other one is like I don't know how like I think the two that people say Dawn helped kill are Sam, which that one I can see. It's easy, push him off. But the other one is Lewis, which they say when she was there pleading with him, that's when she killed him.
Because you don't just kind of like
stick your head under, especially because it was made for fish.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of, I don't know. But Lewis is another one that clearly has schizophrenia.
Yeah.
And then there is Walter, who is imagining something. But that's the other thing is Walter, going back to the Edie thing, is Walter saw Edie die or kill Barbara. And that's why he ran away into the bunker. Exactly. That's where things can get a little confusing because, like, did he hide under there
after he saw it?
Yeah. So, but that's where the little seed I planted about the broken thing is like somebody fell.
Yeah.
And I think Barbara got pushed because there's two, because like think about it like this. There's always the trope of parents being upset that their roller skates are left out and things like that. One of them falls down the stairs. What if like Edie's walking up the stairs and it fell down and Barbara's like standing right there and she's like mad that she doesn't pick up her stuff and she like pushes her or whatever and she slips and falls and breaks the table. But that's one of the things is people think that Walter saw Edie kill Barbara and that's what he ran away from, and that's why he says like sometimes even a monster can look like a friend kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, like I said, Orca Island is a real place, and this is talked about in the video that I watched. There's one train on that island, and it is a privately owned ride. It is not a real train. So why is there a train running underneath the Finch family house And basically by the time the theory is that storm that came through would have already destroyed those train tracks. So Walter in 2005, because that happened when Gus died in 87 or something like that.
Yeah.
Those train tracks are gone.
Yeah.
So Walter could not have been hit by a train. So how did he die? He was told he got hit by a train, or the other theory is he hadn't seen daylight in 30 years. And he got blinded. He thought there was train tracks there because there used to be train tracks, and he fell off the cliff and died.
Because when we went down to the train tracks, they were
gone,
ripped off.
Yep, from the storm with Gus. That's when that happened. That's how those two are connected. Remember, I made a mistake of how they were connected, but that's how they're connected. Is that story happens, and Gus's storm tears off the train tracks, and that's why when you walk that way, you can see there's chairs in the tree, and it kind of shows you like, oh, and then like later I'm like, oh my god, yeah, the tree. Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, that's the theory. I obviously don't have like everything in my mind right now, but it does lend a lot to the theories. Do you have any other thoughts right now?
It just started bubbling when I mentioned that Edie was taking medications that she couldn't take with alcohol. I know that a lot of the symptoms if you take medications with alcohol is like death or like liver failure, but also getting more drunk.
Yeah.
And what if the reason why Dawn was trying to stop Edie from drinking was because all of her murders happened when she was drinking?
Maybe, yeah.
And you know, when people get drunk, they do different things.
Yeah.
And some people literally like turn psychotic. So.
Well, especially with like other drugs in your system too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could be that she was like, okay, I'm about to leave with my daughter.
Yeah.
Don't start drinking so that you can cover up another death.
And kill us. Yeah.
And kill us.
Yeah. And then let me look at the list, because there was a theory that I was reading on was the last death before Milton. Milton was 2003, but prior to that, the last person to die was, I think, Walter. No, because Walter dies after Milton because he's under the house the whole time. The last person is Sam, it looks like, in 83. So she went a long time without killing people.
Yeah.
And then I think she literally like had recovered, like she like stopped killing people, and then Milton found the evidence, or whatever evidence, and that's what kick-started everything again. And then Walter came out, and that Walter might have actually just fallen off the cliff. It might have just happened. But the other thing is, remember I talked about shrines? There's shrine books throughout the house, like shrine concepts, and it's literally called, the books are called like shrine concepts, and they're all throughout the house. And then that's another reason why do you think Dawn sealed up the house, the doors? Because Dawn knows about the murders. So that's the thing, is like, that's why she's an accomplice, is because she knew like, okay, we need to seal these off so no one knows can't find anything out about them. But then what's weird is like Edie drills the peepholes. And it's like, why did she drill the peepholes? It's because she's obsessed with the shrine. She wants to look at the shrine. She wants to look at the shrines of her dead kids that she killed. Like, that's what it's about, is to be like, oh, she wants to still live in that. Because like early on, she like spends a lot of time in Molly's room. Yeah. That's the only room she ever spends time in, because it was her first kid and the first kid to die and all that. So it's like, that's one of the theories, is saying that she drilled the holes in there because of the shrine.
She became obsessive over it.
And so then Sam died of actual accidental causes, or Dawn killed, and then she's like, okay, enough is enough. And she goes, what is that? Almost 25 years, because it's from 83. Yeah, it's 30 years. Yeah. It's from 83 to 2003. And Milton finds actually 29, because it was at his 10th birthday. Yeah. That's when he disappears. And so he goes in the basement somehow, because he probably heard about the key, and he gets down there and finds the stuff, and Milton runs away. Dawn seals up all the doors, which is not normal. Like, it's a super weird thing. And then...
And Lewis probably, because he's like, what, 11 years older than... And she was 4 when Lewis died. Or not... Yeah,
Milton. When he disappeared.
When Milton disappeared.
Yeah.
So Lewis probably remembered the shrines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Edith didn't.
Yeah.
But that's also probably why Lewis had to get killed.
Yeah.
Was because, you know too much.
Gotta get rid of evidence. Yeah. So I definitely think Edie was a murderer, and I think that's where we'll end, unless you have any closing thoughts.
I'm good.
But this was the official first long talk. We are sitting at about 2.5 hours.
Damn.
Right. I'll obviously cut some stuff, and it'll probably get closer, but this is going to be a 2-hour long episode, and finally living up to the name.
Short game, long talk. That was a 2-hour game, and we
roughly
talked for the entire contents of it.
Yep. So definitely, if you enjoy this, please share it around. Word of mouth is the best way of help growing the podcast. If you want to follow us, it's short long pod on Twitter. If you want to follow me personally, I'm Mr. the Human. That's MR on Twitter. And the next game has been chosen already. We might every once in a while we try to stick to the schedule, but sometimes we might be feeling something different. But currently, what is on the docket has been chosen by Jess. If you would like to share the complete opposite. Well, not the complete opposite. This game involves a lot of death as well, but it's quite different.
I actually thought about it for a second. It's a trend now. You choose something more serious, then I chose something funny. Then you chose something more serious, and now I chose Henry Stickmin Collection.
Yes, the entire Henry Stickmin Collection.
Which I used to play so much when I was a kid.
And now it's all remastered on Steam, so we'll be playing that next time. Hopefully in January. If not, maybe we'll do our first...
in between the games.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. Because, we might end up calling an audible, and if it fits into our schedule, we'll meet up twice next month and do a longer game. But Henry Stickmin, I think, it's on sale right now, and it's still on sale right now if you're listening to this as it's being posted. For $7 on Steam. It's definitely worth it. It's a very funny game. Really, if you can beat that game in probably an hour if you pick all the right things. But that's not the point of the game. But yeah, that does it for us. Like I said, please share us around. Leaving reviews is extremely helpful. And just interacting on Twitter, retweeting, whatever, helps it grow, helps get those impressions and everything. But yeah, if you stuck around for this whole episode, that is very impressive. Yeah, because this is what I've had in mind for the podcast, is these long episodes. But I think they'll only happen when we have a real heavy story one and a theory thing like this. Because if this was more cut and dry, everything was out in the open and this is exactly what happened, what I thought was going to happen at the end was we were going to play as Edith's son and then go into the house and actually get the final story of what actually happened. And that was that. It was cut and dry. But that didn't happen. Yeah. And so we had to look into theories. So sometimes we're going to have theories, sometimes we're not, and it might make them a little longer. But really hope you guys enjoyed this. And I hope everybody had a happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. And that'll do it for us. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.